Welcome in here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. We got a busy afternoon for you guys. We want to start out in Los Angeles County. This is a live look at the scene there. So here's what we have from NBC4 in LA. I want to read you the headline first. So it reads, federal agents involved in shooting after brief chase in Willowbrook, according to the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. So a federal agent was involved in a shooting this morning in the southern Los Angeles County community of Willowbrook. That's according to the sheriff's office there. So the shooting was reported at around 7:30 their time in the 2400 block of 126th Street. Now, the Sheriff's Department says federal agents were conducting an operation when there was a brief pursuit that ended in a crash. So we do have video that, again, we want to keep it here on this live show, but we do have video from up high that showed a BMW with front end damage and what appeared to be airbags that were deployed. And that's those shots are courtesy of NBC4 there in LA. Now, shots were fired as someone was detained at the scene. The Sheriff's Department said no one was hit by gunfire, and it's not immediately clear how many rounds were fired. So again, we are still working to sort out the details of this exact operation, whether the person was in custody, all of that stuff. NBC LA has reached out to the Department of Homeland Security, so we are awaiting more information from DHS on this situation. Again, a federal agent was involved in a shooting this morning in the Willowbrook community in southern Los Angeles. That's a live look at the scene there. So we will continue to keep you updated and continue to try to check in on this story throughout the afternoon. All right, so let's switch gears now. We want to talk weather because brace yourself, guys. We have some stuff coming our way, and right now it looks icy. Let's bring in meteorologist Becca Birdsall. I'm careful with my words because we have different models, but I guess it's safe to say be prepared for some slick conditions.
Yes, each and every day we've become more and more confident this is going to be a really high impact system. We're trending now in the direction of more of a mixed precipitation, so the potential for more snow on set and then transitioning into sleet, that freezing rain, and the impacts will be major. Not only that, it's going to be downright cold. There's going to be a period here in Charlotte, we're below freezing for about 72 hours straight. So we have got a lot to get to. Of course, we are weather impact alert, and we will be fully staffed with you all weekend long to get you through this. Here is what's new from yesterday. The ice potential here in Charlotte has gone up. The snow potential, because of that, has gone a little bit down. Now that's different if you live along and north of I-40, let's say up towards the mountains and foothills. That snow potential is still there. The ice potential is a little bit lower. But I'd say a cold rain potential, that is going way down. So the highest threats that we're looking at that mix of snow, ice, and sleet. Now, sleet and snow, they're a little bit more fun. The ice, that glazes and coats everything like cement, and that's what causes the most issues, where we can see power outages, we can see trees down just due to the weight of the ice, and it doesn't take much. I mean, we talk about minor and moderate and major impacts with ice. It only takes around a tenth, a quarter, to even half an inch to create those issues, and we can see those travel issues extend into Monday and Tuesday just because of how cold these temperatures are. So we've been talking about 3 different scenarios all week long. Track 1 looking a little bit less likely. So this was mostly snow and then some ice and sleet, but track 2 is trending a little bit more likely, meaning snow is on the onset, but then as we go into Saturday evening, Saturday night, we see that transition to either sleet or freezing rain. This will continue throughout Sunday. This is a long duration event. A long duration event means more impacts. It means more accumulation. Notice that snow line, if you live along and north of I-40, this will likely just be a big snow event. There's going to be a potential to see over a foot of snow up towards the mountains. Track 3, trending a little bit less. It's just all ice, just a crippling storm. This is not only our problem here, but it's going to be a huge problem from Dallas, extending all the way to the Carolinas. And that blue swath, there's a 70 to 90% chance of a major winter storm occurring this weekend. So that is why we have been on guard, and we are letting you know that we are expected to see these impacts going into this weekend. Let's compare models. So this is the latest timing that we're looking at. So we go into your afternoon, we'll see that potential for that snow up towards the mountains, and then you see that pink there. Well, that's the mixed wintry precipitation. Our meteorologist Chris Mulcahy actually did a great weather IQ on this. You can head over to our YouTube page to get a little bit more information, but this is going to be that sleet, freezing rain potential. That continues Saturday evening. That continues into Sunday morning, afternoon, and the potential for that warm nose to really develop. We could see a little bit of a cold rain to our most southern counties, but I think that idea is trending a little bit less. The second model has some flurries moving in by early afternoon Saturday. Notice the cutoff of that snow line, really from Charlotte up to the northwest. That's when we'll have that greatest chance for snow. South of that, a little bit more mixed, but as we get a little bit more of a warm nose to develop later in overnight, we'll see that transition to, yes, more mixed wintry precipitation. We'll continue that all day through your Sunday, even early Monday morning as we eventually pull off. So the idea is there's so much moisture out there, and depending on these temperatures and how much snow that we're expected to get early in on the day on Saturday. That's going to have a high dependency on what we see. There's a good likelihood that we get a glaze of ice on top of any snow that we do see. And we've been getting these questions a lot. Well, if you see snow first and then you get a glaze of ice, what happens? Well, it's just ice. It's just ice, guys. It's nothing exciting. So you can see that snow line, yes, for the mountains, foothills, alongside that I-40 corridor, but I'd say the snow trends here in Charlotte. I think we could see some snow, but it's trending a little bit more mixed. That's when it just gets really messy, you guys. That's kind of what we're expecting this weekend as well. Let's talk temperatures. For your Saturday, we'll have a high close to around 37 degrees, morning temperatures down into the lower 30s, but it's really Saturday all the way through Monday when I was talking about we could see temperatures below freezing for 48 to even 72 hours. Sunday is going to be downright cold. So when we have a warm nose, basically it starts as snow when it melts into a warm layer and then eventually freezes on contact with the freezing surfaces. It's going to be well below freezing, guys. Temperatures in the 20s all throughout the day. Just a miserable day. If you haven't already, make a plan. Charge phones, backup batteries, have all those winter coats and gear necessary. Avoid driving if you can. Have extra blankets, just enough food and water. Don't need to go crazy, but just making those preparations to stay weather alert as we go into this weekend. It's going to be cold next week. 13 degrees will be our lowest temperature as we go into the next work week. That's going to be as we start off your Tuesday morning. For now, enjoy today. While it lasts, we'll see mostly cloudy skies. Temperatures already warming up there. We'll see those afternoon temperatures in the lower 50s. And then the pick of the week is tomorrow. A high close to around 60 degrees, mix of sunshine and clouds. Thursday is going to be the day where you'll want to run those errands before we get all of this winter weather as we go into your Saturday and Sunday. So I think we'll have a much better idea on timing this time tomorrow. Our short-term models have a much better grip of this. So we'll have our first ice totals, our first snow maps, all of those maps. We wait until we get that high resolution data because anything before that is just not as accurate. So look tomorrow for our first call for ice maps, how much snow we're expecting. We'll have all of those details fine-tuned as we go into the end of the week.
Becca, we got a bit of breaking news courtesy of James Brierton. The National Weather Service has just issued a winter storm watch Saturday morning through Monday afternoon. You may have already seen this. I don't know. That's what I just read.
I knew it was coming, so they put it in their forecast discussion that it was coming, so I am not surprised. We'll likely see ice storm warnings, winter storm warnings this weekend, so if you get that on your phone, you can click on it and it'll tell you what it's for, but yes, we will be getting a ton of those alerts as we go this weekend.
Man, yeah, it is going to be a mess. I've been trying to tell people near and far here within the area, just be prepared. Again, like you said, you don't have to go crazy, but just be smart about it.
Yeah, be on the safe side.
Yeah, if you got a little bit of time, there are a lot of people that work remote. Go to the grocery store, pick up some stuff.
Grab a little extra snacks.
Fill the tank.
Yeah, fill up the gas tank. Yes.
That is such an underrated thing.
I agree.
Fill up I feel like we know this as news people to fill up the tank, but out there, fill up your gas tank. You don't have to worry about it in case you do have to venture out.
Right.
You don't have to worry about stopping at getting gas and then making the stop that you need to.
And I know that ice melt is going off the shelves pretty quickly as well.
Oh man,
It's been flying off the shelf.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, should I have gotten that?
I know. I'm like,
Too late.
I never think
Might be
about
too
it.
late for me.
We're going to check in with Becca at 1:30. Becca, thank you for your time.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, this is something that we need to be prepared for, so hopefully you're preparing at home. We're going to make sure that you're prepared here on WCNC Plus Live Impact News and on the TV side of things, WCNC Charlotte. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. As we just heard from Becca, and we've been hearing for days now, we are preparing for a messy weekend as far as what that could be. Predictions look like and estimates look like. Ice, wintry mix, some snow, but just need to be prepared. The roads are going to be messy.
Everybody stay calm.
Stay calm, yeah.
But you know,
It's gonna be,
when you're out, if you're out today, go fill up your tank.
Go ahead and
maybe
go get
you go get some
groceries.
water. You know.
Yeah, stay calm. I feel like I sounded a little urgent, didn't I?
I mean, it's not. Don't be blasé about
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
You
yeah,
need to get water
yeah,
and
yeah.
gas, but don't take every jug of water you
Oh
see.
yeah. Don't do that. Don't
Share
do that.
The resources,
Share.
people.
Sharing is caring. That's what I'm
Right.
trying to say. Speaking of sharing is caring, we'll send it over to WCNC Charlotte's Anna King. I'll share some time with her. Anna, so folks, as we mentioned, we've been talking about, folks are out there getting ready, going by the hardware store, going by the grocery store. What are you seeing, and where are you right now?
Yeah, it's so funny that you say to stay calm because that's the truth. People are not staying calm right now. We're seeing empty shelves already ahead of this weekend, and we spoke to some managers. I'm here at Southern Hardware, but we spoke to the manager who said things are going off the shelf. And actually, if I put this camera right here, you can see people are here, and they've been here all day filling up propane tanks, just really preparing for what is to come this weekend. And with this weather, we've seen people coming to pick up things like ice and or not ice, pick up salt to prepare just to be ready. So yeah, we the shelves are being emptied, but yeah, stay calm is the truth. That was a beautiful way to put it.
And did you get a chance to speak with folks that are picking up stuff? If so, like, what are they saying?
So yeah, I did. I spoke to multiple customers. Now we do have a lot of people who are from the Charlotte area like me. So that was really interesting to speak to them. And they were saying, we've never seen it be, really bad. And so they were pretty hesitant, but they were still coming out here to prepare, even though they were, unsure about how bad this really will be. They are heeding to the warnings, and they are coming here and picking things up themselves, which is really good. But then you also have the people who told me that their power and things were turned off or cut off last year, and they do not want to experience that again. So they're coming in to prepare. So you have a lot of different reactions, a lot of different experiences when it comes to the storms that people have gone through and experienced. So yeah.
All right, Anna King, she's going to be out and about throughout the city talking to folks, seeing how you are preparing. All right, she'll be live at 4, 5, and 6 this evening. Anna, thank you. Be safe out there.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, people are getting ready, Carlene. People are getting ready.
You kind of have to.
You have to. Look, it's a balance of, look, we want you to be prepared, but we don't want you to freak out.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't want to instill fear or panic,
Right.
but we want you to be alert.
Because there were people that I spoke with yesterday that really did not know,
Right.
or I think underestimate. And we don't
Right.
want you to underestimate this system and what it could bring, even though we still are going through a few different models of what. But it looks like more likely than not that it's going to be a mess, and it's going to be it's going to be a dicey situation. Again, I'm choosing my words wisely because we have different models where it has ice, we have wintry mix, we have snow. But we're trending away from the snow. We're trending more likely towards ice. So I just want folks to remember there are a lot of people who don't have context or don't remember those storms from 2015 or 2002 or even 1994. Where, as you kind of saw that trend there roughly every 10 years where it was tough here.
Right.
We did it was a once in about 10-year type of system that moves, and it seems like it trends that way.
It feels it, yeah.
So I just want you to be prepared. There are a lot of new people here. There are people that have moved here within the last 5 years, 6 years, and have not experienced that.
Right. And we understand that there's a lot of people that are from other places that get snow
Yeah.
and everything like that, and that they say like this is, but we're just not prepared for such a thing. Like when
Yeah.
I lived in Buffalo for 3 years.
Oh, you
It's
saw.
a well-oiled machine when
Yeah.
there's a snowstorm. Like
Yeah.
they have the plows.
Yeah.
It's a science. Like
Yeah.
it's down to a routine.
Yeah.
Here, we ain't got that.
And look, our crews, they do an
They
incredible
do
job.
an
Incredible
but
job.
It's not
You-
routine.
And what we were telling you is just take away how you dealt with maybe winter weather in a different area versus
Correct.
here. It's a different situation. Strip away that
Right.
and just think about the context of what's happening here.
Right.
That's important.
Right.
Because that's a good point, Carlene. You can be in Buffalo and experience a ton of snow. But you've probably seen it all when it comes to
Sure,
winter
for
weather.
sure. But
It's different.
It's different.
It's different. You see it more on a more regular basis.
Yes.
There. But I just want to give a shout out to the crews here. Doing an incredible job. They're going to be working late. They're going to be working a lot of hours
All
over the
hours.
weekend. Be safe out there, crews. Thank you for what you do.
Don't put yourself in harm's way so that
yeah.
they don't have to put
Yeah.
themselves in harm's way.
Yeah. Because they're doing the Lord's work.
Right. It could
Keeping
put
the
a
power,
strain
keeping
on
the lights on.
resources, right.
Keeping the lights on. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Again, as we've been talking about throughout the afternoon and in the morning, we're going to continue to keep you updated on this winter weather system that is moving our way this weekend, planning to have some major impacts, as Becca and Chris and Brad and the entire Weather Impact team has stated. But we're going to put that to a side for just one moment, because happening right now in Switzerland, President Donald Trump is speaking at the World Economic Forum in Switzerland. This, as you know, there are tensions revolving around Greenland, and President Trump saying he wants Greenland. So that's happening here. Let's take a listen.
They're all over Chicago. They want MAGA to come in. And we went in a pretty quiet way, as opposed to the way we did it in Minnesota. You know, in Minnesota, we took out over 10,000 hardline criminals, people with big convictions that came in here that shouldn't be here, brought them back to countries. In some cases, we bring them to jails, because if you bring them back to the country, they'll find a way, despite the strong borders, they'll find a way in, because a lot of them are really evil, but they're not stupid. So we're doing a real job. The country's the hottest country anywhere in the world, the best place to invest. The great big beautiful bill is incredible. You get that 1 year deduction. You build something and you take the whole thing down. And I always said that's what made my first term so successful, because I mean, people were buying things that, I have a friend bought an airplane. He never used it. He just bought it. He said, I deducted it. He's on the plane. I think he's got, Steve, you could buy it. He's got about 4 hours on the plane. It's been 3 years. I think he's got to be a great plane to buy, actually, because he'll never use it. But it really spurred people to do things and do projects that they really would have delayed or held. And the beautiful thing about the great big beautiful bill, the one that we just did, is over there you had a 2-year window to do it. Now we have a 10-year window, which I hate to tell you, because people will take their time. So in one way, I didn't want that. I call that not good, but it is good ultimately. Think of it, it gives me a chance to use it if and when I ever get out of this position. There's a big question. It gives me a chance to use it. Otherwise, I'd be precluded. That would be terrible, right? But it's 10 years, but you're able to, you build something, you build a factory, you write the whole thing off 1 year. Nobody's ever thought that was possible. It was always 38, sometimes 40, sometimes 41 years. You know, you get a little here, a little there, nothing. You write it all up. So it's been really amazing. And you are the people that made it happen, really. Largely it's you and a group of others, not a lot more. I mean, the people here, I guess because of Larry, the people that came to this event, it's really incredible. I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out. We had somebody, as you know, that ran it for many, many years, and I'm not sure what happened there, but I figured, well, that's all right. They had a hell of a run in Davos. Then I heard Larry was taking it over, more or less, and he called me. He said, would you do me a favor? Would you be there? And we've had some great business dealings together, and he's great. He's one of you. He's one of the greats, and it was an honor. We had a good speech. We got great reviews. I can't believe it. We got good reviews in that speech. Usually they say he's a horrible dictator type person. I'm a dictator, but sometimes you need a dictator. But they didn't say that in this case. And no, it's common sense. It's all based on common sense. You know, it's not conservative or liberal or anything else. It's mostly, I'd say 95% common sense, and that's what we have. So I just want to thank everybody for being here. It's such an honor. And if we can ever help, you're going to let me know. And I have a pretty direct line. Marco Rubio's here, too. He's done a fantastic job as Secretary of State. He'll go down as maybe the best Secretary of State if he keeps going like he's going. That's a big question. I don't know that he will, but for the first year, he's headed to the top. And I just want to thank everybody very much for being here. Thank you very much. Take care of yourselves. Thank you.
All right, so that's President Trump there speaking in Switzerland, just finished his speech there. All right, so let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sertivant. As promised, we are going to update you on the latest in southern Los Angeles County. Happening right now. These are aerials out there in the Willowbrook community. So according to NBC LA, federal agents involved in shooting after brief chase in Willowbrook. That is according to the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. So a federal agent was involved in a shooting this morning in the southern Los Angeles County community of Willowbrook. The shooting was reported around 7:30 their time on 126th Street. The Sheriff's Department said federal agents were conducting an operation when there was a brief pursuit that ended in a crash. So this is video there, and I'm just kind of eyeing on what's going on. You see,
This is live, so we don't.
it says police, so I don't
Right.
want to call them federal agents, but it says police on their chest. But it looks like they're moving people out of the way. You see the TV cameras. You see people. It looks like journalists there on the side
car
also,
moving through.
and a car moving through, and just people looks like in the neighborhood that live
Right.
there, off to the side. As law enforcement are sort of just forming sort of this barricade and holding people back. And you see all those phones that are up recording what's happening right now. So that helicopter video, this chopper video earlier, showed the BMW with front end damage and what appeared to be deployed airbags. So shots were fired as someone was detained at the scene. The Sheriff's Department said to NBC LA. According to NBC LA, no one was struck by gunfire, and I still uncertain. That's that BMW I was just talking about. Still unclear what this operation entailed, whether the person was in custody. A lot of details, but again, this is a live look in southern Los Angeles County, the Willowbrook community, as again, federal agents involved in a shooting after a brief chase there. All right, so let's come back out here, and we want to toss now to Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. Again, we've been tracking the forecast this weekend. A lot of eyes, a lot of folks are getting ready for this winter weather system set to have major impacts. Let's take a listen into what Brad has to say on this forecast.
All right, everybody, let's dive right into the forecast. A lot going on here. It's only Wednesday, by the way. Remember, we still got a whole 3 days before this system gets here. We don't even have winter storm watches. Won't come out until maybe tonight or first thing tomorrow. So let's get into what's changed overnight. The biggest story, probably not a move north, which I could be argued that, but I'll explain that in a second. People misinterpreting information that don't know what they're looking at. That's a bad thing. We'll talk about that. Not as cold. And what I mean by that is it is still well below freezing, but it's a little warmer above our heads. That's the key part we're going to talk about. Moisture, the same. Biggest change overnight. We knew this would not be all snow. It's actually trending even more towards ice and less snow. And I'm still seeing people obsessed with the snow thing. I don't know if it's apps or other things, but it is making people crazy because you got to stop focusing on the snow, folks. Focus on the ice, please. There's one thing I can tell you, focus on the ice. And when I talk about ice, sleet, which is ice falling from the sky, it's frozen water droplets, and then freezing rain, which falls as liquid and freezes on surfaces everywhere. Let's dive right into this. Okay, so let's talk about my 3 scenarios from yesterday. If you watched me on air online, I posted a great post about this. The 3 scenarios I'm watching. Track number 1, which is like the one only people looked at apparently because they want all snow, is the least likely. But I wanted to show it because that's still a possibility that it could be all snow. And what I think happened overnight as modeling and data came in, people were like, the storm's moving north and it's going to miss us. I heard that a lot last night and I was like, what? I think people are focused on that white area. It's almost like people have blinders on. They see that white part move north and they go, oh, it's going to miss us. And they fail to recognize that when that moves north, guess what moves over us? Loads of ice. So I was more confident yesterday, probably track 2, an icy mix. But today, if I had to trend towards what's being favored, it's the dreaded track number 3, which is primarily all ice. And this means somebody in our area is going to get a crippling ice storm, maybe a half an inch of ice or more. It doesn't mean it's no snow. It just means the snow amounts are going to be minuscule. Like if I were to percentagize this down, maybe 25% of this is snow and 75% of it is ice and sleet. The only question I have, sleet and ice, like freezing rain, what's the split there? That's the tough one. Sleet would be better for the power, worse for the roads, but that's the question mark now. How much sleet versus freezing rain? But it's definitely trending ice. So from a preparation standpoint, don't be buying sleds. Don't be working about snowball fights and snowmen. Think about power outages, ice melt, being frozen in. That's what you need to be thinking about right now. So why is this happening? Well, let's dive into that. So when you hear people say the storm is moving north, there is some truth to that, but what they're not telling you is what's happening above our heads. At the surface, I think people see, oh, that snow line is shifting north or south, but what you're not looking at is what the temperature is above our heads. So when we look at this forecast setup, you could see it probably will start as snow or sleet sometime on Saturday. And oh, by the way, it does look like it's slowing down a little bit, which also could mean a later arrival on Saturday. So I would think you probably have more time to get somewhere Saturday morning or early afternoon before it really gets bad, but also means it's going to leak later into Sunday. So you see the ice developing and moving in, and look at all that pink. It's pretty much all over the Carolinas. Now, it doesn't mean there isn't snow underneath that pink, which could happen at the beginning, but that's a lot of ice. And yes, the storm track is further north, and means it's pulling more moisture north, but also warmer air above our heads. What it's not doing is changing the temperature down at the ground. And I want to talk about that. And we can look at something called thicknesses. So let me poke over here real quickly. And I'm going to go to a graphic here that's a little bit different. I don't show this all the time, but you see these lines on the map. They're called thicknesses. And for pure snow, we're looking for a line called the 540 line. You see it right here. That means it's below freezing from the ground all the way to the top of the atmosphere. Isothermal, we call it. Basically all snow. You see how far north it is as the system gets closer to us? It's up in Virginia. Now, it doesn't mean you can't get snow underneath that. You see some snow here, but you see these red lines. That's the temperature or thicknesses above our heads, meaning a warm nose is developing. What is that? Well, around 4 to 8,000 feet above our heads, the temperature is above freezing. And down at the ground, it's way below freezing. So two things happen. Depending how thick or strong that is, you're going to melt snowflakes back to rain. It's going to fall into that freezing layer and then create ice everywhere. Or if it's thin enough and the freezing surface temperatures are cold enough, it can refreeze the raindrops into a pellet of ice that will fall. And the reason you know it's sleet, you will hear it. Sleet is loud. It makes a ton of noise. It's like tiny marbles falling all over the place. So you see all that pink? That is a dreaded icy mix. Now the bad news is, man, if that is all freezing rain, that is a lot of freezing rain, folks. And it sits there for a while. We get wedged in. And yes, the European mile definitely has a far northern track and actually brings ice over us for the majority of the event. And then the cold air comes funneling in on the backside. So significant icing in that type of setup. So when we start looking at snow chances, we're starting to get into that range where I can kind of show you the probability of seeing measurable snow. This is only through Saturday morning. And we're starting to see the chances Saturday morning of at least snow. And that's probably going to be the best chance of snow is at the beginning of this storm. It's going to transition fairly quickly to ice. But when people are telling me, Brad, it's moving north, I cringe because it's not moving north. The snow might be moving north, but the storm is actually more detrimental right now than it was yesterday because the ice is the number one concern for us. Snow is plowable. It moves. It doesn't stick to things. Ice is the worst. It is just the worst. So when we look at the likelihood of moderate impacts from a winter storm, they've actually gone up for Charlotte, okay? For everybody who says it's moved north, guess what happened? The impacts have increased. They went from like 60 to 70% yesterday to now over 90% of moderate impacts. And if you're not familiar with moderate impacts, they're right next to my big old head here. Hazardous driving conditions, use extra caution with driving. Closures, disruption to infrastructure may occur. So everybody who thought it was going north, it's actually brought in more ice, okay? So I think that's the thing I'm noticing. People are way too focused on the snow totals. And again, maybe it's because everyone's Apple app is complete garbage and they see that total and go, we're getting snow. Try to listen to me. Ice, 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 ice. I said this last night in my story. I'll say it again because it really is a significant ice setup. So what does that mean for you? Well, let's get into that. So what this means is No, we're not going to have a big snowstorm, but yes, we could still see some. I don't want to diminish the fact because people are like, are we going to see any snow at all? I think we'll see some snow, but it's certainly not the overarching thing. It's, it's 90% ice and 10% snow in some cases, other places 50-50. Just depends on location. But the thing you need to prepare for from an impact standpoint is late Saturday through Sunday are the slick roads. That is definitely our number one concern. And then prepare for staying at home because I think travel is still going to be by far the biggest issue. Getting around will be tough. The icy roads, but also maybe trees or power lines on the roads which block them, and power outages. It's hard for me to forecast where. I don't know about the power lines at your house or the infrastructure in certain locations. That's kind of a wild card, and it just takes a branch hitting a tree branch or a branch hitting a power line somewhere to cause an outage, or a car. This happens in these events, slips on the roads and takes out a power pole. So these are ways that power can go out, and you sometimes can't forecast that. So that's what I want you to prepare for this weekend. As far as timing, I've updated this. I'll put my head right up here in the corner so it's out of the way. I think early Saturday is still looking good. There's a little delay. So if I were to, give you a time, where do I need to be ready for? Dinner time Saturday, I think things go downhill. And notice my travel is the worst. Freezing rain is the worst. Snow and sleet. North of I-40, maybe a medium risk, and then power outages I have relatively high, but that's going to depend on where the ice falls. Now, we don't have totals yet, right? I haven't put out a single total map, so don't yell at me for like, oh, there's no snow, you said this. I haven't put out a single forecast for the amount of snow and ice yet. I'm just telling you about impacts, location, that kind of thing. Tonight, possibly the first time we'll have a snow and ice map, and we're going to have both, because there will be some snow and sleet, but there's also going to be a ton of ice. So we'll have to put out both. So that's the latest right now. I will continue to post updates. It is Wednesday. Right now it is almost noontime here on the 21st. We have a whole 72 hours, which is 3 whole days before we have to worry about this event unfolding, even a little bit longer in some locations. So prepare now. It doesn't mean raid the grocery store for bread and milk. Get the important stuff. Get your house ready, fuel your car up, charge devices, extra batteries, extra heating sources, extra firewood if you have that, all those kind of things. So those are the things you should be thinking about today, tomorrow, and the next couple of days, and just getting yourself prepared, and do all the things before the weekend so that if you have to run errands this weekend, you're not doing them in the middle of an ice storm. Stay tuned for updates. There will be more changes. Just like we saw trends overnight, we've got 3 more days of this where we could see trends go either way.
All right, some good advice there from Brad, and make sure Brad will be in this this afternoon with an update. We're also going to have an update from Becca Birdsall at 1:30, and then Brad and the Weather Impact team 6:30 here on WCNC Plus, the Weather Impact Show. You don't want to miss that as well. Some important information. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Let's head now to Washington, D.C. Where happening right now, a House Oversight Committee is considering 2 resolutions and accompanying reports recommending to the House that President Bill Clinton and Secretary Hillary Clinton be found in contempt of Congress for defying lawful subpoenas. This is over the Epstein files. There's expected to be a vote. Let's take a listen into what's happening right now.
Political party, or because they've done things you don't particularly care for. Going after an individual uniquely because of how they're positioned is also a gross violation of our powers and of the rule of law. And if you look at the precedent of how Congress is operated, we have 3 inherent powers when it comes to contempt. Inherent contempt, civil enforcement, and criminal contempt. Now, since we initiated criminal contempt back in the 1930s, we have rarely, if ever, used criminal contempt as a charge, and we have almost never leapt from civil enforcement to criminal contempt. The decision here to go from civil enforcement and to ignore that step, jumping to criminal contempt, is, in my view, a gross imposition, a gross abuse of power on our part. It is also counterproductive because if we launch criminal contempt proceedings, I think my colleague Mr. Biggs pointed out that we want the Clintons to testify. If we launch criminal contempt proceedings, we will not hear from the Clintons. That is a fact. They will be tied up in court. We have no guarantee that they will ever testify before this committee. Civil enforcement will achieve the goal we want of getting the Clintons out here before this committee. Now, I just think this is problematic. We talked earlier, Mr. Comer, and I still have not heard you to this point in time say anything about the Clintons defying the subpoena. I've heard you say obfuscate, delay, drag their feet. We've had 5 months. But at no point in time did they say, we're not complying with the subpoena. And to me, civil enforcement is an appropriate intermediate step. It makes sense because it allows a court to step in, secure compliance with the committee's subpoena in a nonpartisan, orderly way that follows the rule of law. Court would be empowered to impose fines and actual imprisonment if the individual or entity refuses to comply with us. If we break from precedent, this is going to start potentially a chain reaction of partisan warfare with criminal charges. That is not a road I believe we want to go down in this committee or in this Congress. I think civil contempt will achieve our goals, and it will do so in a way that is consistent with the rule of law. With that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I'll recognize myself for a few minutes. The committee's consulted with the House Office of General Counsel as well as committee counsel, who have expressed significant concern with shifting from criminal contempt to civil contempt because it would likely result in extended litigation that would go beyond this term. As Mr. Perry said, a subpoena is only good for a congressional term. He is already 5 months past his subpoena. The Clintons have lawyered up. There's no question in my mind that if we do this, they will ride this out and hope that the House flips and that you all are in control and you all just let them get by without answering any questions, which I think is terrible. So I cannot support this amendment. I ask my colleagues to oppose this amendment. Chair recognizes the ranking member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to support the amend motion. I just want to reiterate something I think all oversight Dems have said today is that we all want to hear from President Clinton. We all want questions answered from President Clinton. I don't think one member of this committee has stated anything differently. And this amendment is a way for us to secure compliance without immediately moving to criminal contempt while they have been trying to negotiate answering our questions. We can continue to let the legal process play out. Both the integrity of our investigation as a whole is critical as we move forward. This is an opportunity for us to get our questions answered from President Clinton. We will do that without empowering a Department of Justice that, quite frankly, has been corrupt and untrustworthy for many, many months. We should continue to negotiate and work through an established process. Clearly, there's interest to negotiate from the Clinton side. Let's hear from President Clinton. Let's support this motion. I yield back.
If I may, and with all due respect, if you want to hear from President Clinton, have him come in for the deposition. They've had 5 months to do that. For whatever reason, you've been unsuccessful. There's 2 more weeks before this will be voted on from the full House. We will hear from Bondi in between, and we will go from there. We expect to hear from Clinton. He's not above the law. Mr. Walkinshaw is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of points. One, it seems to me like we made some progress in the negotiation to talk to President Clinton here today. You have acknowledged you and your team are no longer going to demand to be able to ask questions not related to Epstein. The Clintons have agreed to transcription of that conversation. So you could go to New York and talk to President Clinton on the date that you all set. That's ready to go. We've heard from Ms. Luna that it would be a bad look for you and the ranking member to have to drive to New York. They got airports there. You all could take a flight and go to New York and have the conversation. That would move our investigation forward. I'm supporting Mr. Men's amendment in the nature of a substitute, and you know, I'll share. I was a staff member for a member of this committee for more than a decade throughout the Obama administration, multiple chairmen of the committee, and time after time after time, Republicans who chaired the committee, Democrats who chaired the committee, negotiated with members of the administration or private individuals who they wanted to have come before the committee, negotiated the terms. Not once did I see this kind of leap to criminal contempt. It is not consistent with the way that this committee has operated. It is not necessary. Mr. Men's amendment or you and the ranking member going to New York and having the transcribed under oath conversation with President Clinton would move our investigation forward. Either of those are better options than pursuing criminal contempt, which would not get us a conversation with President Clinton, would not move our investigation forward, and would not get the survivors the transparency that they're demanding. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If I may, Mr. Walkinshaw, to reply to that, one reason that your counteroffers today don't hold a lot of weight with me is the fact that we never demanded to their attorneys that we ask questions outside the realm of the Epstein investigation. That was never a thing. They have just made that up. So their dishonesty, you know, we've already admitted one lie when they said this wasn't a lawful subpoena. That was in the letter from Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton to me. They said this is not a lawful subpoena. It is a lawful subpoena. Does anybody disagree with that? It is a lawful subpoena. So, number two, we've never asked to ask questions outside of this. And I'll give you an example. When we were negotiating with Hunter Biden's attorneys, or judiciary was negotiating, we agreed when Hunter Biden came in to talk about the Biden influence peddling and the money that they were receiving from foreign countries, we wouldn't ask about the stuff on the laptop. We wouldn't ask about the stuff in the suspicious activity reports about human trafficking and other things with Hunter Biden. We only asked about the influence peddling, which was what the investigation was. And it's been the same with the Clintons. So if their attorneys are trying to spin out with the media that we wanted to talk about Monica Lewinsky or anything else, that is not true. All we want to talk about is Epstein. That has always been the deal. And for them to say otherwise is a complete 100% lie by the Clinton attorneys.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, Mr. Chairman, and I'm glad that the Clintons have agreed to have the conversation transcribed. So it seems to me that the only remaining barrier of the barriers you have identified is you don't want to go to New York. And from my view, this investigation
I'm going to New York this
enough.
weekend. That's not a barrier.
Go to the moon. Let's have the conversation. You can do it.
Chair recognizes who's next. Ms. Stansbury.
Thank you. Honestly, I just want to get some clarification because I've heard so many different things here this morning. So, Mr. Chairman, you just said you're willing to go to New York. In fact, you're going to New York this weekend. Is that correct?
The committee has released the emails, so
No,
you
I'm just
can
asking
see
you,
the communication
I'm not
between
trying
the
to be
tab.
difficult. I really just want to understand. Are you willing to go to New York to conduct this interview and deposition?
With the committee, with the staff, it's not going to just be. We have negotiated this for 5 months, Ms. Stansbury.
No, I'm just asking simple
And
questions.
you're all
So
are
the
thinking,
question-
and
So
they've had 5
So
months.
is the answer a yes? It sounds like it's a yes. My other question for you is, so it's my understanding that you guys have received both correspondence by phone, email, and from a written letter from the attorneys from the Clintons offering to do this on the record with you, with the staff, with the attorneys. Is that correct?
I wasn't paying attention to your question.
Okay, we're here pursuant to a motion you brought for contempt, and the claim is that you have made reasonable accommodations and that they have not been responsive. But they have transmitted correspondence to all of the members of the committee, including yourself, and all of the members, basically including a letter from their attorneys stating that they have offered by phone, that they have offered by email, and they have offered in a written letter from both themselves and the attorneys to meet with you on the record with the staff to give sworn statements. Is that correct?
We have
Yes, it's
negotiated for
yes
5
or no,
You
have
all
they?
are trying to create a false
No,
narrative. You've had 5 months. You should have gotten to the Clintons
I am
before the
asking-
contempt vote.
All I'm asking you is if that's true.
And if they weren't losing public opinion, Ms. Stainsbury, they would be
But
defying
Mr.
this now. That's the
Chairman-
only reason there's negotiations at the last
But
minute.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just asking
They don't get
if
to make
those
the
are
rules. We
facts.
make the rules. The chairman of the committee, we make the rules.
But Mr. Chairman, is that the fact? That's all I'm asking. Is that factual?
Either.
Just to be clear for the public, his staff are advising the chairman to not answer that question. Okay.
No, the staff said they couldn't understand what the hell you were saying because you've blabbered for 3 minutes, but go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, let me say it again. Is it true that the Clintons and their attorneys have had multiple conversations with you via phone, via email, and via written correspondence offering to give sworn statements on the record to you and the staff? Just a yes or no.
The Clintons said that we could take notes, Mr. Garcia and I.
But
The
they're-
committee would like to ask questions as
Are
well.
you not in receipt of a letter postmarked from their attorneys yesterday saying they would give sworn statements under oath?
Sworn, that's not a record.
You're not in possession of the letter that their attorneys sent yesterday to the entire committee?
What their letter is stating isn't what you're stating.
Okay, well, I'm not going to read the letter. We'll make sure it's available to the public.
Although I'm sure
But
they'll
in
make
any
sure
case-
anything's available to the public. The problem is they've not been truthful, and
But Mr. Chairman, the legal standard for contempt is non-cooperation. And so my question to you is, are you making reasonable accommodations? Are you cooperating? Are you in correspondence with them? And this is in direct relation to the motion that was made now for an amendment.
All right, so what you're watching now live here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus is the House Oversight Committee. Right now, they are debating, but they are considering 2 resolutions, along with a report that recommends the House that President Bill Clinton, former President Bill Clinton, and former Secretary Hillary Clinton be found in contempt of Congress for defying lawful subpoenas over the Epstein files. Let's come back here at home and let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant, and we want to continue to check on this forecast. This winter weather that is blowing into our area over the weekend. Becca Birdsall is back here in studio. Becca, I guess my question is kind of like a question. It's a question of a question. So what's the biggest question you've gotten so far with the system, if that made sense at all? James is shaking his head. I'm just trying.
No, it doesn't.
You get what I'm saying.
I get what you're picking up.
Yeah.
Yes, or throwing down. I'm picking up what you're throwing down.
Thank you,
Yes.
Becca.
So
No, thank you, James.
I think most people are concerned about what they're going to see at their specific location. You know, I live up in Hickory. Am I going to see more snow than ice? I think it's more, what am I going to get type of thing. And I wish it was more of a black and white forecast. Oh, you're going to get this and you're going to get this, but it's not. And that's why it's so concerning, because we have so much moisture. So if we see a significant amount of ice or snow, you know, those cause huge impacts. So we're bracing for a major winter storm from Texas all the way to the Carolinas. And the newest update that we had in the last hour was a winter storm watch has officially been issued by the National Weather Service. So I want to read you a little bit more on this watch. This goes from Saturday through Monday. So this is through the weekend and then early next week. The mountains, basically along and north of I-40, is when we'll have the highest snow and sleet accumulations, and in the Piedmont, heavy mixed precipitation possible. I want to read a little bit further on this. Total snow and sleet accumulations between 1 and 6 inches, and then on top of that, ice accumulations between 4/10 and 1 inch possible. That is damaging, even crippling. If we get 1 inch of ice, that is crippling. That is so much weight on power lines. We will likely be seeing widespread power outages. That we could see tree limbs down. So many problems out on the roads. So when we see this type of ice, we can see it on power lines, tree limbs. Can create long-lasting power outages. Roads become treacherous and impassable, and just hazardous conditions as we go into the Monday morning commute, as likely temperatures will of course be below freezing at that point. The highest snow and sleet accumulations are possible north of I-40, so that is what we are forecasting as of now. So let's get into the details. What's new? Well, the ice potential has gone up. Snow potential has gone down. If you live south of I-40, including to the Charlotte Metro, that's what we're looking at. Rain potential also going down as well. Impacts, highest threats will be snow, ice, and sleet. Ice being, of course, the most damaging. Expect extended travel issues not only through the weekend, but through early next week as well, and anticipate power outages. On the impact scale, this really starts to ramp up after Saturday afternoon all the way through early next week. We've been looking at 3 different scenarios pretty much all week long. Track 1 is looking a little bit less likely. This was the mostly snow and then some ice and sleet. And then track 2 trending slightly more likely. This is snow first on the onset and then changes over to ice. It continues into ice as we go into your Sunday. But now we're also looking at track 3. This is more ice and turns into a crippling storm with potential for those accumulations to near an inch. That is not going to be good. You know, it's not just us. It's all the way from Texas into the Carolinas. So winter weather, a major system is coming this weekend. So we're looking at a couple of different models. This ice accumulation one showing that heavy system coming in, again, along and north of I-40. This is mainly going to be snow and sleet, but south of that, this is where we're really going to be having that concern for that ice. Snow totals have kind of been all over the place. Especially up towards those highest elevations, could see anywhere from 3 to over 6 inches, but some models have around a foot of snow. This is something that we have to pay attention to very carefully. Not only that, temperatures are going to be very cold. We could even have a period where we see below freezing temperatures for 48, even up to 72 hours in some spots. So your Saturday, a high of 37. Morning temperatures, or lows I should say, down into the lower 30s. Sunday is even colder, and you may be asking, well, if we have a high of 29, well, why isn't that snow? Because we'll be below freezing. Well, here's the thing. But when we get a warm nose developing in the atmosphere, snow melts into this warm layer and then freezes on contact with those freezing ground temperatures. So that 29 may look a little concerning, or if you will, with those temperatures in the middle to upper 20s, but that's the winter weather that we're expecting. I've mentioned this a couple of times, but yes, you should be preparing for the worst. Charge phones, backup batteries, have those winter gear and coats necessary, extra blankets in case power goes out, enough food and water. Avoid driving if you can, and of course, stay weather aware. Watch for updates. We will be streaming all weekend long for you guys, and it's going to be cold next week as well. Tuesday morning, our coldest low temperature, 13 degrees with wind chills even colder than that as well. So today, got an increase in clouds. Certainly not a bad day to get out and about. Highs will be in the lower 50s out there. We'll have a chance for a couple of showers as we go later in on the day, but it's not going to be much. So very minimal rain chances as we go into your Thursday into Friday. And then here comes that system for Saturday and Sunday. This is going to be downright cold. We're going to have a mixed bag, a little bit of everything it looks like, but it looks like the trend for ice only continues to go up. Highs on Sunday below 30 degrees. We'll be spending the day in the 20s. So that's 60 degrees on Thursday. Soak it up because major changes on the way.
Man, we go from 60 tomorrow as a high to like a different season.
It's going to slap us in the face.
Oh, man. Not even like a smooth transition. It's just going to come abruptly. Becca Bursall, thank you for that forecast. Again, we will continue to update you on things as it changes, as it comes in. Becca, thank you again. Let's get now to Los Angeles County. So we got some new information from NBC LA. I want to read you the headline. Federal agent opens fire during immigration enforcement operation in Willowbrook. That is a community there in southern Los Angeles. So according to NBC LA, a federal agent opened fire this morning in the southern Los Angeles community of Willowbrook during an immigration enforcement operation that resulted in a human smuggling suspect being taken into custody. That's according to the Department of Homeland Security. No one was hit by gunfire in this shooting, which was reported around 7:30 this morning, their time, on 126th Street. But federal authorities said a Customs and Border Patrol officer was injured. Details about the injury still unclear. Now, I want to read you something else. So you saw earlier from this vantage point that there was a BMW with some sort of front end damage with deployed airbags. This is a look at that BMW from earlier. That's what they were focused on. Agents and officers there on the scene. So happening right now on the scene, if we go back to that aerial shot happening right now, you see folks.
While you were talking, Nick,
go ahead.
We watched these black SUVs, possibly with federal agents in them, trying to make their way down the street. And we watched a couple individuals kind of just standing in the middle of the road, blocking the path. Mm-hmm. And the vehicle waited until they stepped aside. But there were a couple of prolonged moments there where this group of people were standing in front of these vehicles. I'm not sure if you were able to see it while you were reading, which is why I kind of just wanted to call attention to what it is we're watching right now in these live aerials.
And I have noticed when we've gone back to this earlier, law enforcement creating some sort of self-made barricade to separate what's happening on the scene or further up in the scene past the yellow line, and some of these cars, these SUVs that are coming through. So a bunch of cell phones are out. Obviously, you see the news crews there. Speaking of news crews, a crew there on the scene. I believe this is from NBC LA. Spoke to a person who was there, a community member. Let's take a listen to that.
Do you know the area? Have you seen law enforcement, federal law enforcement in the area?
Correct. So I have seen law enforcement, but the federal ones, they like to come and go. They like to actually move quick. So the fact that they're here and this incident happened, I think honestly they came to the wrong city. There's a lot of us that are against what's going on, but yes, they are around our cities, and I think there's a lot of us out here like myself that are supporting the community, being an extra set of eyes for them, and yeah, so that's why we're here. We're filming, we're bringing everything that, the truth of like what's going on, because there's a lot of people that are scared to come out and see what's going on. So yeah, I mean, they're around. They're around.
Can you paint just the sentiment or how the people are? So there's a lot of immigrant families here.
Yeah, correct.
What's the feeling like for people that live here?
It's frightening. I mean, it's traumatizing. Kids are scared, that they're not going to see their parents when they return back from school. People are scared to go out and to work because, a lot of these people are immigrants and they work with, cash under the table, and, they have to be out on the fields like mowing lawns and, fruit vendors, and it's like they're scared. So on top of us already being minority, we're struggling even more now because of this fear that they're installing into our communities that is not right, and it's also causing permanent trauma to our children.
And then 1 second. And then you said you've seen them before, drive around, hang out, but seeing them actually out here standing with guns out, masks, tactical gear, do you think that that's just a show of force, or it's needed?
I think that they're here because of the incident, and now there's an investigation going on because they move quick. They're not at a scene longer than 5 minutes because we're out here patrolling and trying to alert the community. So once they see one of us come out and say, hey, what are you doing here? They leave. Like when they do a detention, they don't last any longer than 2-3 minutes, and they just leave. They move cities quick because they know we're out here trying to help our community.
Can I get your name?
Angie Vargas.
All right, so that is the situation there in Los Angeles. That's a community, southern Los Angeles County. That's a community member you just heard from. Again, just want to reiterate, federal agent opens fire during immigration enforcement operation in the Willowbrook community. All right, and again, you're taking a live look there at the scene there. Folks there in the community, law enforcement, federal agents there. And we will continue to check in as things evolve and as we get more information and we learn more information from that area. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. We want to get to some headlines and what we have coming up this afternoon. So we are continuing to prepare for this major winter storm that is expected to hit our area Saturday evening through early Sunday morning. So we want you to be prepared. So make sure you stick with us here on WCNC Plus and on WCNC Charlotte on the TV side of things. At 2:15, so we're going to hear from some astronauts as they talk about the medical evacuation. So we'll have that at 2:15. At 2:30, Duke Energy is preparing for the storm. So we'll give you an inside look of how they are preparing, because they're going to be busy over the next few days, and I'm sure they've been busy so far this week preparing for that winter storm. Also, we are continuing to track a federal agent involved shooting there in Los Angeles County, southern Los Angeles County neighborhood and community of Willowbrook. This is a live look at the scene. People there in the community, also law enforcement and the federal agents there on scene. And according to NBCLA, a federal agent opened fire in the Willowbrook community during an immigration enforcement operation that resulted in a human smuggling suspect being taken into custody. That's according to the Department of Homeland Security. So as soon as we get more information, we'll continue to share that with you here on Live Impact News. All right, winter weather not just impacting us here in the Carolinas, but man, the Southeast is just going to, it's bracing for a lot of this stuff. So we're not in it alone. In Memphis, Tennessee, among a lot of places in the Southeast, they are preparing. So let's take you now from earlier, Memphis, Tennessee, as officials there prepare and discuss the preparations for this winter storm.
I guess we can just start with how you guys are prepping. Okay, well, let me say and spell my name first. Ursula Madden, URSULA, Vice President of Corporate Communications for Memphis Light, Gas, and Water. Basically, we have been watching the weather since last weekend, just like everybody else is, keeping a close eye on it. We have a weather briefing that's happening a little bit later this afternoon, where we'll get the latest information about weather that is coming through. We are prepared. We know that there's the possibility of outages, so we want you to know that we have 75 crews, electrical crews, that are standing by ready to get into operation. 35 of those are our full-time employees, and another 35 of our contractors. We also have our tree trimming crews that normally do maintenance for us, but they will be acting in an emergency capacity if we should need them. And there's about 75 of those crews as well. So we want to make sure that our facilities are sanded and salted so that our trucks can get out on the street and respond to whatever situation happens. We know we're expecting the possibility of snow or heavy ice. That can tend to delay our response, but we are going to get to any emergency situation as quickly as we can to restore power as quickly as we can as well. And so while we're prepared, we also want homeowners to be prepared. We want residents to be prepared. So that means paying a little bit of attention to your pipes and your infrastructure, make sure your cabinets are opening, the air circulating to get some heat through there, and to drip and run your faucets. Those are just some of the things we're going to be asking people to do. We also think we're going to be dealing with some pipe issues because the temperatures are going to get so cold. But we are prepared for that. We're making sure that we have heating and insulation at our pumping stations to make sure that our wells do not get stuck. But we will be monitoring those situations very closely.
Yeah, and could you explain a little bit about how the response would be expected to change snow versus heavy ice, and what the difference of precipitation is going to mean for y'all?
Yeah, so ice is such a complicated situation. One, it causes problems for driving, but also it creates extra weight onto our power lines. That extra weight makes the lines more susceptible, especially if they're hit by trees. So that could be the ultimate problem for us. Snow, it's harder to get through, but it's dry. You know, to get through it will delay the response, but hopefully, between the city and county officials getting out and salting the roads, we'll be able to get to where we need to go in the event of an emergency.
What are some tips and tricks for homeowners and residents as the cold weather approaches them?
Well, the first thing I would say is just keep safety in mind first. Heating is always always a concern. We do have folks who use gas heat. Don't use your stove. I know people will be tempted to do that, but try not to do that if you can. If you do, make sure that you have a carbon monoxide detector in your home to make sure that you are not getting any bad quality air in there. Never use a generator indoors. Like I said, keep your cabinet doors open so that your pipes can get the heat from your house and circulate so you don't have a burst pipe. But be prepared. You should know where to shut off your water in your house if you have to. Mine's in my basement. I've got a lever that I can pull down. I also have a meter key that I can turn it off at the curb if I have to. But in the event, just make sure you know where your valves and everything, your shutoff is for your water. That's really important. And have some water on hand. You want to have probably a gallon a day per person in your home. So have some water. If you think there's a situation where, you can even put water in your bathtub to store it. Make sure your bathtub's clean.
I'm curious, we talked about, we covered so much about all the tree trimming that's happened that you guys have invested a lot of money into. Do you think that'll hopefully help? Because when people in our meeting this morning, they're talking about a storm back in 1994. People were without power for so long. So how does this compare at all to that? Does the tree trimming help? Can you talk about that?
I think the tree trimming will help. You have to remember we hadn't met our tree trimming goal in 30 years. So what we have seen so far with what we've done over the last 2 years, that tree trimming has significantly reduced our time to recover. We have an outage situation, we're able to get it restored, and because we have these tree trimmers here who are doing such regular work, they're able to go out with us in these emergency situations. If a tree has fallen down, they can remove the debris more quickly. So it's really helping cut down our outage hours.
Are you guys removing any trees before the storm? If so, how many or anything like that?
Our tree trimmers will be looking at that. They'll be going along routes and trying to see if there is a potential for a tree to fall down, a tree limb to fall down on some power lines, and they will be taking care of that ahead of time. So that's what they're going to be doing over the next couple of days until Friday, and then emergency situation, they'll be at the ready.
I think one of my last questions is when you talk about the 1994 storm, it seems like that's the biggest storm everybody continues to talk about. I'm new to the area, but with that being said, I mean, how have you guys continued to progress?
Well, I think our COO would say, our chief CEO would say that we are trying to be reliable today and ready for tomorrow. That means all the investments that we've made in infrastructure, what we've done with utility lines, what we've done with underground wiring, what we've done with our tree trimming, all those things make us more ready to respond in emergency situations. So that's what we're doing. We've invested a lot. We're going to continue to invest in the future to make sure that we are as reliable and ready as we can possibly be.
What cadence should we expect during the storm in terms of communications?
So we will probably have 2 to 3 meetings per day, depending on how severe the storm is. We will also be operating in conjunction with the city of Memphis. They are going to have their emergency crews out, so it's likely that we will be combining forces in that sense, but we will have regular updates on social media. You can follow us that way. Of course, we will be putting out a regular news release to let you know what how the outages stand, how they've been restored, and what we face next.
It's going to be quite cold. What about the availability of gas? How much is there enough gas in storage to get?
Oh yeah, we buy and store gas in the summertime when it's cheap, so that we can release it when we need it the most. So we shouldn't have a problem with that.
And what has TVA communicated on long-term power expectations over the course of the week?
That's something we're going to talk about this afternoon when we have our meeting.
Thank you.
Any final thoughts? If people are, you mentioned no generators inside and safety with carbon monoxide and whatnot, but any final advice for people if they are without power for a long time?
One, be patient. Please know that we are working as quickly as we can. In the event there is a power outage, you should check on your friends, your neighbors, your family, make sure that they are okay. But the main thing is to be safe. So have your water, have your provisions. You need to have your medications. Make sure that you've got at least 3 days worth of medication. And we will try and restore the power as quickly as we can. But know we're working on it. We're doing it safely. We're doing it quickly. And we will get through this together.
Thanks, Ursula.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys. I appreciate you.
All right, so that was an update from officials there in Memphis, Tennessee. They're expected to see some of this winter weather that is going to roll in the next 72 hours. Okay, let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Here are your headlines. So we are continuing to track this winter storm that is sweeping across the southeast, specifically here in the Carolinas. We are expected to see some slick, some slippery, whatever adjective you want to put out there, conditions. So we want to keep you safe. We want to keep you prepared as we head into this over the next 72 hours. As a look at the trends there, we'll have more on this forecast in just moments. Also, we are continuing to track the situation there in the southern community, southern Los Angeles County community of Willowbrook, there where we are learning, according to NBC LA, that a federal agent opened fire this morning in the southern Los Angeles County community, again, of Willowbrook during that immigration enforcement operation. You see there, I believe more people have arrived there on that scene since we last checked in about 15 minutes ago. So officers there have been taped off. There are more people there in protest. It looks like we have a reporter there on scene. As I kind of ramble a little bit, as she is there on the ground, as there's tension there, and there's also what the Department of Homeland Security is calling a suspect that's in custody, resulting in a human smuggling suspect taken into custody. Let's take a listen into this reporter.
Right behind me. We had to actually pull away because of the profanity and tense situation there. But you have activists, you have the Mexican flag waving, you have signs here, you have the community members yelling at agents saying, get out of our neighborhood. We do not want you here, saying they are fed up with these ICE operations taking place. And we also just learned more about this shooting investigation from DHS that they say happened at 7 o'clock this morning. So according to them, law enforcement officers were out here conducting a targeted operation, trying to arrest an undocumented immigrant from El Salvador who they say is violent. His name, William Eduardo Moran Carballo. The feds claim he was involved in a human smuggling operation, has 2 prior arrests for inflicting corporal injury on a spouse, and that an immigration judge issued him a final order of removal in 2019. So that's what they say they were doing out here. Now take a look at the car. I don't know if you can see it on the air, but that's the one that the suspect was in. You see that the airbags were deployed, and during the takedown, DHS says the man they were after weaponized his vehicle and rammed into law enforcement. That's when they say the agent, fearing for his life, fired defensive shots. The suspect was not hit, but did attempt to run away, according to them, and was successfully apprehended by the law enforcement agents there. As we come back out to the scene here, the neighbors say they're just fed up with ICE. You can hear them. They say they're not welcome in their neighborhood.
All right, so there is a live report there on the scene there in Willowbrook. Again, a federal agent involved shooting there. Folks there on the scene. We're getting more information about this suspect who was taken into custody, who wasn't hit, according to this reporter. I think we're getting another update. Let's take a listen in to what she has to say.
Apprehended, and according to DHS, he was not injured or shot. As far as the agent, he was not shot, but he
All right, so it looks like that shot froze there. But again, as you can see, a live look at the scene, a growing scene. 1, more media there. 2, more people from the community are there. You see the Mexican flag there to your left, and a bullhorn as they are yelling or they're chanting at, it looks like the sheriff's department is there. I believe there are still federal agents there on the scene. As you see, that car, the focus of this investigation, as again what NBCLA is reporting, a federal agent opened fire Wednesday morning in the southern Los Angeles County community of Willowbrook during an immigration enforcement operation that resulted in a human smuggling suspect taken into custody. That's according to DHS. So we'll continue to update you on that and continue to give you more information on the latest in this investigation, just the latest incident involving federal agents and community members as we were thinking about what's happening throughout the country right now. All right, so let's come back here at home and let's talk about it. Winter weather. That winter storm that is moving its way, is chugging along here on the minds of a lot of people hitting the grocery stores. James, you were at was that the hardware store or grocery store?
I went to Target yesterday and bought that.
So that was from yesterday.
That jug of ice melt I bought last night at Target.
I'm safe to assume that it's probably going to be hard pressed to find that at that same Target location.
Well, I buy a very specific brand of ice melt.
And that's Brad's.
Ice melt. So yeah, limited supply. But there it is.
There you go, Brad. You're hooked up. Speaking of Brad, let's check in with Brad. He dropped the weather vlog for us, updating us on what is expected to play out shortly.
All right, everybody, let's dive right into the forecast. A lot going on here. It's only Wednesday, by the way. Remember, we still got a whole 3 days before the system gets here. We don't even have winter storm watches. Won't come out until maybe tonight or first thing tomorrow. So let's get into what's changed overnight. The biggest story, probably not a move north, which I could be argued that, but I'll explain that in a second. People misinterpreting information that don't know what they're looking at. That's a bad thing. We'll talk about that. Not as cold, and what I mean by that is it is still well below freezing, but it's a little warmer above our heads. That's the key part we're going to talk about. Moisture, the same. Biggest change overnight. We knew this would not be all snow. It's actually trending even more towards ice and less snow. And I'm still seeing people obsessed with the snow thing. I don't know if it's apps or other things, but it is making people crazy because you got to stop focusing on the snow, folks. Focus on the ice, please. There's one thing I can tell you, focus on the ice. And when I talk about ice, sleet, which is ice falling from the sky, is frozen water droplets, and then freezing rain, which falls as liquid and freezes on surfaces everywhere. Let's dive right into this. Okay, so let's talk about my 3 scenarios from yesterday. If you watched me on air online, I posted a great post about this. The 3 scenarios I'm watching. Track number 1, which is like the one only people looked at apparently because they want all snow. is the least likely. But I wanted to show it because that's still a possibility that it could be all snow. And what I think happened overnight, as modeling and data came in, people were like, the storm's moving north and it's going to miss us. I heard that a lot last night and I was like, what? I think people are focused on that white area. It's almost like people have blinders on. They see that white part move north and they go, oh, it's going to miss us. And they fail to recognize that when that moves north, guess what moves over us? Loads of ice. So I was more confident yesterday, probably track 2, an icy mix. But today, if I had to trend towards what's being favored, it's the dreaded track number 3, which is primarily all ice. And this means somebody in our area is going to get a crippling ice storm, maybe a ½ an inch of ice or more. It doesn't mean it's no snow. It just means the snow amounts are going to be minuscule. Like if I were to percentagize this down, maybe 25% of this is snow and 75% of it is ice and sleet. The only question I have, sleet and ice, like freezing rain, what's the split there? That's the tough one. Sleet would be better for the power, worse for the roads. But that's the question mark now, how much sleet versus freezing rain. But it's definitely trending ice. So from a preparation standpoint, don't be buying sleds. Don't be working about snowball fights and snowmen. Think about power outages, ice melt, being frozen in. That's what you need to be thinking about right now. So why is this happening? Well, let's dive into that. So when you hear people say the storm is moving north, there is some truth to that, but what they're not telling you is what's happening above our heads. At the surface, I think people see, oh, that snow line is shifting north or south, but what you're not looking at is what the temperature is above our heads. So when we look at this forecast setup, you could see it probably will start as snow or sleet sometime on Saturday. And oh, by the way, it does look like it's slowing down a little bit, which also could mean a later arrival on Saturday. So I would think you probably have more time to get somewhere Saturday morning or early afternoon before it really gets bad, but also means it's going to leak later into Sunday. So you see the ice developing and moving in, and look at all that pink. It's pretty much all over the Carolinas. Now, it doesn't mean there isn't snow underneath that pink, which could happen at the beginning, but that's a lot of ice. And yes, the storm track is further north and means it's pulling more moisture north, but also warmer air above our heads. What it's not doing is changing the temperature down at the ground. And I want to talk about that. And we can look at something called thicknesses. So let me poke over here real quickly. And I'm going to go to a graphic here that's a little bit different. I don't show this all the time, but you see these lines on the map. They're called thicknesses. And for pure snow, we're looking for a line called the 540 line. You see it right here. That means it's below freezing from the ground all the way to the top of the atmosphere. Isothermal, we call it. Basically all snow. You see how far north it is as the system gets closer to us? It's up in Virginia. Now, it doesn't mean you can't get snow underneath that. You see some snow here, but you see these red lines. That's the temperature or thicknesses above our heads, meaning a warm nose is developing. What is that? Well, around 4 to 8,000 feet above our heads, the temperature is above freezing. And down at the ground, it's way below freezing. So 2 things happen. Depending on how thick or strong that is, you're going to melt snowflakes back to rain. It's going to fall into that freezing layer and then create ice everywhere. Or if it's thin enough and the freezing surface temperatures are cold enough, it can refreeze the raindrops into a pellet of ice that will fall. And the reason you know it's sleet, you will hear it. Sleet is loud. It makes a ton of noise. It's like tiny marbles falling all over the place. So you see all that pink? That is a dreaded icy mix. Now, the bad news is, man, if that is all freezing rain, that is a lot of freezing rain, folks. And it sits there for a while. We get wedged in. And yes, the European model definitely has a far northern track and actually brings ice over us for the majority of the event. And then the cold air comes funneling in on the backside. So significant icing in that type of setup. So when we start looking at snow chances, we're starting to get into that range where I can kind of show you the probability of seeing measurable snow. This is only through Saturday morning. And we're starting to see the chances Saturday morning of at least snow. And that's probably going to be the best chance of snow is at the beginning of this storm. It's going to transition fairly quickly to ice. But when people are telling me, Brad, it's moving north, I cringe because it's not moving north. The snow might be moving north, but the storm is actually more detrimental right now than it was yesterday because the ice is the #1 concern for us. Snow is plowable. It moves. It doesn't stick to things. Ice is the worst. It is just the worst. So when we look at the likelihood of moderate impacts from a winter storm, they've actually gone up for Charlotte, okay? For everybody who says it's moved north, guess what happened? The impacts have increased. They went from like 60 to 70% yesterday to now over 90% of moderate impacts. And if you're not familiar with moderate impacts, they're right next to my big old head here. Hazardous driving conditions, use extra caution with driving. Closures, disruption to infrastructure may occur. So everybody who thought it was going north, it's actually brought in more ice, okay? So I think that's the thing I'm noticing. People are way too focused on the snow totals. And again, maybe it's because everyone's Apple app is complete garbage and they see that total and go, we're getting snow. Try to listen to me. Ice, 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 ice. I said this last night in my story. I'll say it again because it really is a significant ice setup. So what does that mean for you? Well, let's get into that. So what this means is, no, we're not going to have a big snowstorm, but yes, we could still see some. I don't want to diminish the fact because people are like, are we going to see any snow at all? I think we'll see some snow, but it's certainly not the overarching thing. It's, it's 90% ice and 10% snow in some cases, other places 50-50, just depends on location. But the thing you need to prepare for from an impact standpoint is late Saturday through Sunday are the slick roads. That is definitely our number one concern. And then prepare for staying at home because I think travel is still going to be by far the biggest issue. Getting around will be tough. The icy roads, but also maybe trees or power lines on the roads which block them, and power outages. It's hard for me to forecast where. I don't know about the power lines at your house or the infrastructure in certain locations. That's kind of a wild card, and it just takes a branch hitting a tree branch or a branch hitting a power line somewhere to cause an outage, or a car. This happens in these events, slips on the roads and takes out a power pole. So these are ways that power can go out, and you sometimes can't forecast that. So that's what I want you to prepare for this weekend. As far as timing, I've updated this. I'll put my head right up here in the corner so it's out of the way. I think early Saturday is still looking good. There's a little delay. So if I were to, give you a time, where do I need to be ready for? Dinner time Saturday, I think things go downhill. And notice my travel is the worst. Freezing rain is the worst. Snow and sleet, north of I-40, maybe a medium risk, and then power outages I have relatively high, but that's going to depend on where the ice falls. Now, we don't have totals yet, right? I haven't put out a single total map, so don't yell at me for like, oh, there's no snow, you said this. I haven't put out a single forecast for the amount of snow and ice yet. I'm just telling you about impacts, location, that kind of thing. Tonight, possibly the first time we'll have a snow and ice map, and we're going to have both, because there will be some snow and sleet, but there's also going to be a ton of ice. So we'll have to put out both. So that's the latest right now. I will continue to post updates. It is Wednesday. Right now it is almost noontime here on the 21st. We have a whole 72 hours, which is 3 whole days before we have to worry about this event unfolding, even a little bit longer in some locations. So prepare now. It doesn't mean raid the grocery store for bread and milk. Get the important stuff. Get your house ready, fuel your car up, charge devices, extra batteries, extra heating sources, extra firewood if you have that, all those kind of things. So those are the things you should be thinking about today, tomorrow, and the next couple of days, and just getting yourself prepared, and do all the things before the weekend so that if you have to run errands this weekend, you're not doing them in the middle of an ice storm. Stay tuned for updates. There will be more changes. Just like we saw trends overnight, we've got 3 more days of this where we could see trends go either way.
All right, so stay with Brad. He'll have more, obviously, throughout the newscast, but at 6:30 during our live weather impact show on WCNC Plus, models will change surely by then, so make sure you tune in at 6:30 here on WCNC Plus. Let's head to break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sertivant. We want to take you now to a press conference that's happening live. So NASA's Crew 11 astronauts are discussing a medical evacuation from the International Space Station. So let me give you some background. So 4 astronauts discussing their shorter than expected space mission during a press conference that's happening right now. So the members of SpaceX Crew 11 mission, the first ever to be medically evacuated from the International Space Station. Talking to reporters at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Let's take a listen there.
It was definitely With Whom You Fly. I remember every day that we had together on all the amazing things we did. But one thing that when you first said it, Zena, I didn't fully appreciate, it's With Whom You Fly, right? Our ground control teams, how awesome. We had such the great rapport with all around the world. And it was great every morning and every evening having a chance to share that with the rest of the world. There were we were getting great science done. We were singing songs to each other on Christmas. Our flight director gave us some really great Christmas songs that were space themed. I mean, this was just a joy to fly, and not just with this great group here, but the whole team around the world. And we shared a lot of amazing things. Some of the things we did with science was amazing. The zero boil-off test comes to mind, or the stem cell research. Being up on board during a government shutdown and still everything keep going. And then the 25th anniversary of continuous human habitation. I was fortunate enough to be there when the space station was tiny. We only went as far as the lab as 2004. So not quite 25 years ago, but and then to come back aboard a space station that is so full with 7 crew members, getting some world-class science done, something amazing happening every day. What a joy to fly. We were getting ready for an EVA, Zena's first. By the way, she's really awesome. It was great to fly with you, Zena. She was a natural when we first got there. Oleg, this was his first mission too. What a natural. They adapted super fast and became incredibly productive crewmates. Kimia-san, thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
He used to thank us every day for our hard work. So finally I get to thank him for his hard work. It was a joy flying with each and every one of you, and we did some amazing things together. So I'm talking a lot, but I just want to say that when we were getting ready for an EVA, something happened. The team came together, and it wasn't just this team, but the whole team, like Zena said, around the world. And we were able to come home safely to our families, back to beautiful planet Earth. Turned into a fireball over San Diego, plasma everywhere. It was beautiful reentry and splashed down. The dolphins came to visit us, and then we were rocked. We weren't allowed to sleep, but we were kind of rocked very carefully by the gentle waves of the Pacific Ocean. And what a neat adventure it was to share with each and every one of you. Station is in good hands with Chris Williams and 2 Sergeys, and we are continuing on. And we got to see our Crew 12 friends that are going to be launching really soon. And they were there when we stepped out of the plane at Ellington, and it was really nice to see them. We were hoping to give them hugs in space, but we gave them hugs on Earth. It all works out. Space station is going super strong. I'm very proud of the space station that we built and what humans can do. But how we handled everything all the way through nominal operations to this unforeseen operations, really bodes well for future exploration. We're a well-honed machine here at the Johnson Space Center and around the world. So when we're getting ready for Artemis, I am very optimistic. So, sumimasen. I talked a lot, but go ahead. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu. Thank you for your hard work.
No, thank you. Yeah. Gina-san, also Mike-san explained a lot, and I mean, almost nothing to add, but thank you very much for this opportunity to talk about our great experience to everybody. And I'm so grateful. I was the member of this great team. And of course, we came back a little bit early, but we worked very hard, worked together, and helped each other, and also accomplished a lot. Actually, not only our crew members, but also including ground, and also everybody actually helped us a lot. And I think this is great because I think we showed everybody about international cooperation, importance of the international corporations. And this is kind of like a bright side of humankind, where we can work together and accomplish very good. And also, this is kind of like a good vector to a bright future. So I think we were able to show us like a good example for everybody. And we are going to keep talking about our great experience. And hopefully people think actually our bright is bright, so bright. If people believe that, actually we can accomplish that. And if we're gonna actually keep working on that, even on the ground, I'm going to keep talking about our great experience. So thank you very much for your support.
Hello, everybody. I was really happy to be as a part of Crew 11. I had and I have super awesome crewmates: Zina Sensei, Michael San, Kimiya Sensei, my commander, pilot, and me in this crew. And also I would like to say for you, thank you very much for your help and support during preparation, during flight. And I'm really happy. It was unbelievable, unforgettable increment for me. It of course was a first flight for me, and I'm happy to have you with me during this flight. And also I would like to say thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you, my country, Roscosmos, NASA, United States, and SpaceX. It's super opportunity for me to have this flight. And also thank you very much, ground team in the all MCCs, Moscow, Houston, Tsukuba, Munich, Huntsville. Thank you for your great work and support. And thank you very much, everybody.
All right, thank you. And with that, we will go ahead and open it up for questions beginning here in the room before going to the phone bridge. As a reminder for those joining us on the phone bridge, you can press *1 to enter the queue and *2 to remove yourself from the question queue. When called on, please state your name and affiliation, as well as to whom your question is addressed. And with that, we will begin here in the room.
Thank you. I'm Mark Carreau with Aviation Week and Space Technology. With the space station nearing its end of life, I know there's been a lot of discussion about trying to get as much done as possible that you can do up there. And you had a pretty full agenda. I'm just wondering, even though you left a little bit early, do you feel that may have subtracted from the ability to do everything, or did you really charge on and get as much done as you could and leave? I know there's only 3 now for just a little bit, but do you think the desire to get as much done in the research and tech development will be interrupted very much by what happened?
So if I could just take that one. Our crew was a very productive crew, and our ground teams were amazing because they balanced everything based on what we could deliver, and to make sure that we had enough rest. And it was a very nice pace, and it was a lot of things to get done. And yes, we left, we came home about a month early, and that is going to affect the timeline a little bit, just because there aren't 7 people, there's 3. And but what's really neat is that our replan capabilities are great, and we're not missing anything that had to be done time critically. We're able to move things around We still have 3 cargo ships on the USOS side, and I think 2 Progresses on board. So there is still a lot of unpacking and packing to do just for the cargo operations. Not to mention, all of the science and everything else. We left a really capable crew on board. Sergei Kuznetsov is a great commander. Chris Williams came up and with great enthusiasm and willingness to learn. So we're in very good hands. There's going to be a little bit of a difference in schedule, but we're going to be able to accomplish everything we need to do. When Crew 12 arrives, they're going to hit the ground running. But again, we have this down to a really nice system where our mission control teams, our planning teams, the space station program, all kind of take a good pulse and give us as much work as we can do. And we as crews try to deliver, and there's flexibility in the schedule, and that's what keeps the space station going. And there's still some more years left in our beautiful space station.
All right, so that is a live press conference there at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. NASA's Crew 11 astronauts discussing that medical evacuation that happened at medical evacuation that's happened, and they're talking about it at the International Space Station today. Sorry, I had a quick glitch. It happens from time to time. That's what happens when you do live stream for a couple of hours. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. All right, welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sertivant. So happening right now, I believe, I know the case is in Orange County. Do we know where this courtroom is?
We'll find out. Wake County is prosecuting.
Wake County is prosecuting. So what I am talking about and alluding, I just want to make sure I get the right information. We want to take a live look inside the courtroom there in Wake County, which is in Raleigh. Prosecution expects to wrap up his case Wednesday against Isaiah Ross. He's charged in the 2022 murders of Lyric Woods and Devin Clark. I remember covering this case back in 2022. The defense has not provided a witness list, telling the court the only possible person they would call to testify would be Isaiah Ross himself. So again,
no audio yet for the courtroom.
Okay, no audio in court, but again, that is playing out. Again, I think I believe I have the wrong case.
This is the October 2020 2022 shooting, the teenager here, Austin Thompson, charged with the mass shooting in the Hedingham neighborhood?
Okay, so I'm getting there are two, actually, I'm sorry guys, there are two cases that are happening right now in the Raleigh area that I clicked on. The one I just talked about, this one is the mass shooting that happened in the Hedingham area this in Raleigh. So again, there are two big cases playing out there in Raleigh. Sorry for the confusion, but again, that suspect in that Raleigh mass shooting is in court. Again, a lot happening apparently in that area. All right, so we're keeping an eye on both cases, in both trials. All right, so let's shift gears. We got to make a pivot because we want to talk about weather.
Hard pivot.
It is a hard pivot, as you heard from, I believe you heard from Walker Lawson. He is covering, just like a lot of our reporters and everybody in the building, this winter weather that is moving through. You got a chance to talk to Duke Energy.
Yes.
I mean, it's going to be it's already been a busy week, but it's about to be even busier for them.
It's going to be a busy one, but they're obviously confident in their abilities. They are one of the biggest energy providers, of course, so there are a lot of staff, a lot of people that are preparing for some long shifts, but what I did want to mention that I thought was super interesting, and I've actually never heard this from them in any of the interviews they've done, but one of the technologies they talked about that they're working with going into this storm is something called a self-healing grid technology. It actually identifies power outages and reroutes power to restore service faster. So in 2025, they said they were able to avoid more than 1.4 million customer outages. Now, this means if you have something fall on a power line that essentially they can reroute energy to different places, except for people that might just depend on that one line. But it's a really interesting technology that they spoke about that I had never heard of, but of course, as James I'm sure knows too, this winter storm, we've obviously seen a big trend with ice being the fear for what could be the predominant precipitation type here. And as they mentioned, it takes 6 inches of snow for them to have tree limbs come down on power lines. For ice, it only takes 1/4 of an inch. And if we know anything from what Chris said earlier today and what the guidance is really showing, there is a fear that that could be the total, if not more. So they are aware that this is going to be a very detrimental winter storm in a sense, I guess you would say. This is really going to be a widespread winter storm from what we know. The entire state, in a sense, is pretty much prepared, and they're moving crews around the state to decide where they're going to need to position them based on how forecasts will evolve and change. Again, we're still about 72 hours out or so, which things can change. So they're ready, they're prepared, but I thought it was interesting to hear, obviously, the amount of ice that can take down power lines, and also the technology that they're using, in a sense, to try to help reroute.
Oh, man, yeah, it's got to be tricky because it's like we still don't have, and Brad will update us a little later, but we don't really have numbers of how much we have, and we have like a rough possible estimate, but again, as we saw there on screen, there are 3 different models and tracks.
3 different tracks.
3 different tracks, so you just never know. Walker, an important story. When can folks check out your story this evening?
4 o'clock tonight and 5:30.
4 o'clock and 5:30. You don't want to miss it. Again, look, you want to be prepared for this stuff to come in. I don't want to scare you, but I also want to make sure that you are weather alert and you know what's going on. So do all the things to get prepared. Walker, thank you for stopping in. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Happening right now in St. Paul, Minnesota, we are hearing from a Minnesota citizen detained by ICE along with their representatives. Let's take a listen to it.
And this has to be end. It's unacceptable. It's kidnapping for those people that here illegally. We're not defending for those people that does something wrong or getting to, but we protecting for those individuals that are here, that live in, they are our neighborhoods, they are our co-workers, they are making difference in the state of Minnesota. This is hurting our economy, and as Representative Vega said, we have to have a peace, and it's enough, it's enough. Have you seen a lot of people are protesting because they are demanding for justice?
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we'd like to open up for any questions that the press and public may have, but not for Nazra, out of due respect for her emotional well-being.
There was a federal order Friday saying that ICE can no longer use chemical irritants, can no longer do traffic stops, a bunch of stuff seemingly curtailing what ICE agents can do. Have any of you noticed any change in how ICE agents have behaved since that order?
I'm sorry, excuse me. I guess I didn't see that.
Good afternoon, State Representative Mahmoud Noor. I think you've heard from my colleagues. We are seeing violation of the order from the judge. As I speak with you right now, a gentleman from St. Cloud was pulled from his car, who is a U.S. citizen. I do have his documentation. I've seen the video. I know that he was pulled from a car that he was driving on the streets without any targeted process. So ICE is violating what the orders of the judge as I speak to you. They're doing many things right now in South Minneapolis as we speak. We have to follow the rules. We have to follow things that are established through the legal system. We have that separation that needs to be respected. And I can tell you that, no, they're not respecting the order that came from the judge.
What further action could you take then, maybe, if they're not following?
Representative Dave Pinto from St. Paul. We're aware that there are a series of lawsuits relating to the actions of ICE in our state. And we will have, and I know that the judge, that same judge who issued the order on Friday, is receiving information, and future orders and further orders are expected. So I'll say also, though, it's important that we all, as the people of Minnesota, recognize experiences like what Nostra experienced and others as well, and make it clear to everyone involved that that is completely unacceptable in our state and in our country. Unacceptable, full stop. Thank you.
Sounds like we're hearing story after story of American citizens being detained. That doesn't seem to be something that ICE is at least publicly keeping track of from a data perspective. Is anyone within the Capitol or anything along those lines trying to keep a comprehensive list?
I spoke with our county attorney, our Ramsey County Attorney John Choi this morning, who has expressed, call 911, report to your police, create documentation so that it is filed, so that we can have that data and that we can utilize that data to continue to protect our state. And so please don't eliminate from calling 911. If you contact 911, and our Attorney General, I had some messages that Representative Noor can address as well.
So there's a portal that has already been created by the Attorney General, and so we are asking anybody whose rights, their constitutional rights have been violated, they need to do that documentation by uploading the information that they have to that portal.
There's a lot of parents that they're scared to come out, and some of them, they can't afford to go to work, and they can't afford to pay their rent now, and the month is over. So is there somebody can help them, or you guys, anything that you guys prepare to help those people because they're scared to go out?
We do that, yeah.
Hello, everyone. Anika Bowie, St. Paul City Council, Ward 1. So today, during our city council meeting, the council has committed to passing a letter to Governor Walz to actually mandate put into effect a moratorium on evictions. We all know that in the midst of this crisis, it's so hard for our landlords and our tenants to even think about rent, think about going to school, thinking about going to work, how to make ends meet. We also are going to be following up with some emergency assistance to help with businesses and also help people with payroll, because that's so important. We all know with this times we need a strong economic security blanket to help our loved ones get through.
It sounds like each of the representatives has heard from multiple people who have been detained in recent weeks. Can you speak to what you're hearing about the conditions at the Whipple building for folks who are taken by ICE?
We had a congressional hearing.
All right, so that is a look at that press conference there in St. Paul, Minnesota. So we want to get to a bit of breaking news, I would say. Let's take a look at the New York Stock Exchange. So the Dow rallied 600 points after President Trump calls off Europe tariffs related to Greenland. So here's what we have. This is according to CNBC. President Donald Trump today said that he and NATO's Secretary General have, quote, formed the framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland. Trump said that as a result of the negotiations, he would no longer impose punitive tariffs on a slew of European countries that were set to begin February 1st. So this move pretty much just stocks shot up after that. So you're taking a live look again at the New York Stock Exchange. Let's take a listen in. President Trump today in Switzerland, we heard from him. He was at the World Economic Forum speaking on a wide variety of things, including Greenland. Let's take a listen in.
In his clearest statement yet, President Donald Trump ruled out using the military to acquire control of Greenland.
I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force.
In a wide-ranging speech that lasted more than an hour, Trump took aim at Switzerland, the host country for the World Economic Forum. He warned Canada to be grateful to the U.S. and questioned NATO's commitment to defend the U.S.
The United States is treated very unfairly by NATO. I want to tell you that. And when you think about it, nobody can dispute it. We give so much, and we get so little in return.
Trump also slammed Denmark as ungrateful for refusing to relinquish control of Greenland, contending that the nation owed the U.S. for defending it during World War II. Repeatedly, the president also named Iceland when it appeared he meant to refer to Greenland.
After the war, we gave Greenland back to Denmark. How stupid were we to do that? But we did it. But we gave it back. But how ungrateful are they now? I'm helping Europe, I'm helping NATO, and I've until the last few days when I told them about Iceland, they loved me. They called me daddy, right, last time?
California Governor Gavin Newsom was in the audience and called the president's speech, quote, remarkably insignificant.
He was never going to invade Greenland. It was never real. So that was always a fade. And so he says, well, we should negotiate. Well, everybody here has been willing to negotiate for a year. So it had fire and fury signifying absolutely nothing.
I'm Ivan Rodriguez reporting.
And again, that is Ivan Rodriguez with CNN reporting on that story. Okay, let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. All right, welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. All right, so we continue to track the latest when it comes to the threat of what could be, I stress, what could be a pretty major winter storm to blow through our area and just bigger picture throughout the Southeast. So ice, snow, sleet, all at play here. This is a look at the 3 different tracks that we have right now. A lot of them just aiming more towards that icy mix. So earlier, we had a good discussion. James popped in for a little bit of the discussion this morning during our 9 to 11 stream. We were kind of giving some context on past storms. A lot of people who are not from here, 1, and 2, who haven't been here that long. And usually these types of storms, you get them maybe every 10 years, like this type of storm. Now, we've seen snow more frequent, ice more frequent, a wintry mix more frequent, but this type of storm that could be crippling, we usually see it about every 10 years, James.
I mean, I will tell you that my storm supplies at home, Nick, were depleted. I had not properly replenished them since Helene. And so that's why I went out yesterday and I bought ice melt, and I also filled my shopping cart with shelf-stable food. So everyone in my house knows that when I start buying Pop-Tarts, it is time to get serious. So, I mean, if we're doing it here in Weather and News, we hope you're doing it at home too, taking these next couple days of nice weather to prepare. It seems pretty certain that we're going to need some form of supplies, but as we say before any storm prep, Nick, it never hurts to have them, because whether you use them now or later, they will be of benefit to you. They're shelf stable. They're not going anywhere.
I remember, and I was talking to James about this during one of the breaks, about the storm in 2002. And James kind of laughed a little bit, not laughing as a ha-ha, but laughing like, wow, this is wild that it happened. But, we had a good chunk of snow. On top of that, ice, and we were out of power. I'm from High Point. I was in High Point with my family. We were out of power for about 2 weeks.
That's serious business, right? And there are probably folks watching us right now who unfortunately are thinking back to Helene because they may have been in a similar situation. But ice is no joke. No. And you heard Brad talk about it in his weather vlog. The trend today has been less snow, more ice. And ice numbers appear smaller than snow, right? 8 inches of snow versus half an inch of ice. Those are hypothetical numbers, but like when you just hear 8 versus a half, oh, that must be better to get only a half. But you take so little ice to make problems on the road, problems with power lines. It takes only a 1/4 inch of ice to start causing power outages, and that's why I think everyone on the Weather Impact team is taking this really seriously, because the trend has been fairly consistent that the ice potential is going up, the snow potential is going down, and there is virtually no rain potential.
The worst feeling, James, is I speak about the scenario in 2002, it was so quiet because we hadn't had power in a long time, and all you could hear was cracked limbs.
Yep.
And at sometimes they fell on power lines, and so that's all you heard, cracked limbs from that ice.
Hand crank radios.
Yeah.
Some way to keep yourself warm that doesn't depend on electric and is safe to use indoors. Maybe some form of entertainment, and of course food, medicine, pet supplies, those type of things.
And please, because I knew folks back in 2002 that did this. Don't use the propane heaters inside the house. Don't open up the oven door if you have a portable oven. Don't do that's very, very dangerous. But I also will say on that same note, check on your loved ones. Check on especially the elderly. Check on those folks. Your neighbor, that person you may go to church with, the person that may live down the street from you, and you don't even know their name, but you know that they live there. Go and check on them, knock on their door, see if they need anything. Okay, let's get to that conversation. Again, we had that conversation earlier with Chris, putting into context what we could see in looking back at past storms.
This is actually from NC State, so they have a climate office, and this recaps December 4th, 2002, as far as freezing rain and snow accumulations. Well, letting you know, and you'll see this here shortly, is they had some values up to about a ½ inch to an inch, and that was pretty much from northern Mecklenburg County all the way up through northern Raleigh, as you're seeing here. And that's one of the big reasons why we saw such a power grid outage with that. And they saw snow with this. Now, like looking back at that storm event, I think that's the one that really closely kind of correlates. And property damage, they're representing just here in North Carolina alone $100 million in damage from the ice. That's another thing that we're not really mentioning, that this potentially across multiple states could be $1 billion disaster as far as things go, because that also includes cars, accident, power lines having to be repaired. Yeah, this is a big one, not just for us, across multiple states.
Take it serious. Chris, you pointed out too, every 10 years, I'm thinking back in my brain, I'm like, yeah, we do have like a big sort of winter weather event every 10 years in the Carolinas.
Yeah, so we just said 2002. Let's bring it up. So that's something, and if you look at the bottom right there, I know there's a bunch of numbers there, that big white area, that's where you had the ½ inch to an inch of ice. And that is a possibility. Usually I've seen these before, I'm like, okay, this is now 3 days in a row that they said this is a possibility. I'm not going to calm down my demeanor until I start to see it start to simmer down. So I was just like, okay, this is where we're going. Yeah. And then that had a little bit more snow to the north. Charlotte still had anywhere from about a quarter to a ½ inch of ice in there. But what Nick's bringing up, it was 2015, 2016, there was each ice storms there. Before that was 1994. So think about it, 1994, 2002, and then 2015, 2016. So, and tomorrow I'm going to try to kind of piece those together a little bit more, but it just really shows the correlation. This is a once in a decade thing. It's like, I think that it takes about every 10 years that we have that perfect setup between cold air, moisture that blasts us here in the Carolinas.
I was saying I'm preparing for like hurricane, you know, charging the extra battery packs, get the water per 1 gallon per person for at least 3 days. What else do we do? The little lanterns. Yeah, bad, but it's basically power and water for now is what I can think of.
And I have an old house, so I have terrible windows, and then I saw what the price of windows were, and I was like, well, we're just going to have a cold house or a high heating bill. Yeah. But realistically, putting that plastic stuff up is really helpful, and if you have an attic that you pull down, I bought this, as it was fantastic, that literally it's like a space blanket type material that you staple around it and then you zip it up. I feel the difference. So doing those little tricks of putting the plastic up on your windows or doing that type of stuff where air is getting in, now's the time to do it, because we're going to be much colder beyond that. But then we brought up other things. Think about your life and make it icy. It's going to take a lot of imagination, because we mentioned it was like, oh, well, I'll park my car in the garage. Well, what happens if your garage is frozen shut? I'm going to leave my car outside. Oh, what happens if it's completely encased in ice? There are just so many things that are going to happen here. So the only way for you to really avoid it all is don't go anywhere. Now, some people, I know that's impossible, but I guarantee you a lot of the businesses that you love to go to are going to be closed from this event if this scenario comes true. Because, again, I feel ridiculous, everyone's. It's 4 days out. I'm talking like it's tomorrow. But the fact is that you have such a clear setup that all of us are pretty much saying, oh, no. Yeah. So that's why I'm here. I'm hoping that everyone comes up to me on Monday and is like, that wasn't that bad at all, Chris. Right. And I was like, but I also don't want to be sitting here and it's like, wow, I wasn't prepared for that.
Some great context there by meteorologist Chris Mulcahy. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. But before we go to break, make sure you tune in for the Live Weather Impact Show on WCNC Plus at 6:30. You don't want to miss it. Our Weather Impact team is working hard to give you the information that you need to get prepared for this storm this weekend. So make sure, Live Weather Impact on WCNC Plus at 6:30 tonight. Of course, Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich will be there. All right, now we'll head to break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
All right, folks, welcome back to Live Impact News. Vanessa Rufus taking over for Nick Sturdivant here. As you've likely seen over the course of the last 24 hours, and even earlier than that, we've been keeping an eye and keeping you alert of this potential impact from a winter storm coming this weekend. And we are seeing just today, a winter storm watch has been issued. It's in effect for the entire Charlotte area through 1 p.m. on Monday. It's impacting Alexander, Anson, Ash, Burke, Cabarrus, Caldwell, Catawba, Chester, Chesterfield, Cleveland, Gaston, Iredell, Lancaster, Lincoln, Mecklenburg, Richmond, Rowan, Stanley, Union, Watauga, and York counties. And it was a mouthful, but all that's to say is everyone across our viewing area will need to be weather impact alert. Now, we know various agencies are trying to prepare. Our Bria Smith has been checking in to see how first responders plan to respond to the cold weather here. So, Bria, you're joining us from the Medic headquarters in Charlotte. What did you find out?
Yeah, Vanessa, well, the biggest thing, I had the chance to speak here with Medic and also EMS in York County. Their biggest things is being prepared ahead of time. So in York County, they have a 7-day plan that they've already implemented for this winter weather. And then here in Medic, definitely making sure that they're preparing and just advising people of some of the things that they should do before we might see the worst case scenario of this winter weather. So definitely the do's and don'ts, wanting to make sure that obviously you want to stay warm, but not turning on the stove and leaving the door open, not leaving space heaters on when you fall asleep, making sure that there's a clear space. Obviously, don't forget to, leave candles on if you're leaving the home or you're going to sleep. So just those basic things, but just a reminder of having safe practices when it comes to heating your residence, whether it's a home, an apartment, you name it. And also being prepared goes along with making sure that you have readily accessible foods or, essential items that you might need, like water, snacks, chips, you name it, things that you probably won't be able to, cook and put together, but that you'll be able to eat, as well as batteries. So just all the things, just making sure that people are aware, so that, if we do see the worst case scenario, that people are ready to survive, the next couple of days.
Now, Bria, we know, for example, with, let's say, a hurricane. I know in my experience covering hurricanes in Florida, we would hear from first responders saying after a certain point, when conditions get to a certain point, we might not physically be able to get out and get to you. And it's usually in the case of a hurricane, we hear, when winds get beyond a certain speed, and it's really just dangerous for high-profile vehicles, like, say, an ambulance, to go out on the roadway. I'm kind of curious in this respect for a winter storm with ice now sounding to be more and more in the mix with the situation, causing issues with the roadways. Weather Medic told you, were there certain conditions at which they won't be able to come out and reach people, or do you feel like they might be able to get out at any point if folks do have an emergency and need help?
Yeah, Vanessa, that's a great question. They actually didn't name exactly what that point might be to where they won't come out to get you. They do say, immediately when they get a phone call is when help begins. But they do urge that if you don't have to go home because the roads will be so slick and so icy is what we're expecting, that just pretty much stay home. Which is why they're pushing to get all your necessities prior to those expected days when the ice will be, on the ground. But they will be able and try to, get to someone who might be on the road, who might be stuck, or in the case of an emergency. But again, definitely, if you don't have to be out, to definitely stay home, because just as much as it is dangerous for any one of us to be out on the road, it would be for them. So for everyone's safety, they just urge to stay at home as much as possible.
Now, I know with big weather events, too, a big portion that we have folks prepare for, whether it is, an ice storm like we're potentially looking at here for Charlotte, or a hurricane, or what have you, power outages. And I know that can play a role with maybe some of the types of calls that Medic might have to respond to if folks don't put in enough planning on, let's say, how they might power certain pieces of medical equipment in their home. Did you hear Medic talking about things that they wanted folks to prepare for on that front?
Yeah, absolutely. That was a big thing, especially if you have, any underlying conditions. You want to make sure that you get those prescriptions ahead of time, just in case of any power outages. There is no true telling when that might be able to return, especially for certain areas. So if you needed to go pick up a prescription, systems might be down. So definitely getting that ahead of time, stacking up on cases of water, gallons, especially if you're in an area where you rely on well water. You definitely want to have at least 2 gallons of water, or at least 1 gallon of water per person in the household for each day that the power might be out. So just reminders there, if you do have any health conditions and you do need that medication, to get it as early as possible, and to definitely have enough water for everyone in your home.
All right. Some great advice. Bria, we know that you're working on a piece for us tonight here on WCNC Plus, right after Live Impact wraps up at 4 o'clock. When can we see you in our evening newscasts? And do you have different angles planned? If so, if you're going to be in multiple shows?
Yeah, so we'll be on at 5 and 6 with full stories, here in Medic, so in the Charlotte area, and also in York County, just giving those 2 perspectives. A lot of great information, so 2 full stories with all the information that you might need to know for those specific areas. But again, I think this is general information that could apply no matter where you are that is expecting some extreme winter weather, Vanessa.
All right. Bria Smith, thank you so much. We'll see you tonight for your reports. We appreciate you. And folks, will remind you throughout here, Live Impact, and through our evening newscast, that our meteorologists, our weather impact team, will be answering any of your questions that you might have here live on WCNC Plus. So ahead of time, maybe get some of those questions in. You could see the text line that you can use. The number is 704-329-3600, and you'll make sure, of course, that you're tuning in at 6:30 so you can see those questions be answered. Brad Panovich will be here for the usual live weather impact stream that we have right after our 6 o'clock newscast, answering those questions all week long. With that, we're going to take a quick break. When we return, talking about another important topic for folks who are preparing for the winter storm coming, and that is our pets. And I kind of want to break this down a little bit further, because we know that there are a lot of great tips and advice which we'll have for you in the coming days about taking care of your own pet. But we also know from various rescue groups that there are some pet owners who keep their dogs outside year-round all the time and don't necessarily heed any sort of winter storm warnings. There's a way for you to help out with that, with supplies, with stepping up to be assistance if you have any of these dogs who need to be rescued. So we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes with one of our local rescue groups. Thanks for sticking with us. We'll see you in 2 minutes. All right, folks, here, welcome back to Live Impact News. We have a brand new feed that just came into the newsroom just literally a second ago. President Trump taking questions from reporters upon answering other questions in Davos, Switzerland. Let's listen in to hear what he's got to say.
The peace is going to be special. We're going to have peace. It started off with Gaza, the Middle East. We've got peace in the Middle East. Tremendous peace in the Middle East. Nobody thought that was possible. And that happened by taking out the Iran nuclear threat. Without that, it could have never happened. But the board is going to be, I think, really fantastic. And I think it'll be the most prestigious board of any board ever in world history. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, that was a rather brief Q&A with reporters. From what we could tell, just the very tail end, he was talking about, I believe it was the Peace Board, which we know that there have been various leaders from around the world who've been tapped to be on this board, including, as we reported earlier this week, Russian leader Vladimir Putin. And this will be a group that is responsible for essentially supporting continued peace in the Gaza area. So more to come as we hear more about this board and other plans for that region of the world. We're going to turn right now to the U.S. House of Representatives. We've got some dialogue underway. From what we can tell, just based on the calendar, this is likely a discussion about H.R. 6945, which is the Supporting Pregnant and Parenting Women and Families Act. This would advise states to use TANF, so Temporary Assistance for Needy Families funds, for pregnancy centers that support protecting the life of the mother and the unborn child and offer resources and services for families that are having children. Well, I think that they've moved on now that they've zoomed out and we can see maybe more of an international dialogue.
Yeah, I think it's talking about how the United States can increase mineral and mining resources to compete with China. Let's listen in.
Okay, perfect.
He threw a future of American abundance, security, and global leadership into chaos. The decision undermined America's economic, military, and strategic interest in those of our allies. The minerals in the Duluth complex are called critical for a reason. We need them. The whole world needs them. Nations, businesses, militaries, and individual consumers are going to acquire these minerals. The only question is whether they will be mined here in the United States by American workers, protected by American labor laws, with the strongest environmental standards and most advanced mining techniques or not. The Duluth complex is also home to a world-class helium reserve, which has attracted investment from investors. Specifically, the withdrawal itself locks up roughly 11,000 acres for helium exploration, blocking development of one of the largest and most concentrated helium deposits in the entire world. But don't let the rhetoric around this issue confuse what is at stake here. The resolution before us today is about more than just one project. There are two options, Mr. Speaker: mineral dominance or mineral dependence. There isn't a third option, and it's long past time for the federal government to act like it. Our global allies rely on America's leadership, and if we are to remain a leader in the global economy, then domestic mineral abundance is a strategic necessity, not a political football. The resolution before us does not mandate projects, mining sites, firms, or schedules. It simply reverses the Biden administration's unilateral short-circuiting of the normal permitting process. This resolution is a step toward balance and the rule of law. It is a step toward the mineral abundance the American people deserve and that Washington has denied them for too long. I want to thank the gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Stauber, for introducing this resolution and for his tireless work on behalf of his constituents. I urge my colleagues to support the legislation, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves the balance of his time. Gentleman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in strong opposition to H.J. Res. 140, a resolution that would threaten America's beloved boundary waters canoe area wilderness in northern Minnesota. Mr. Speaker, the boundary waters draw more visitors than any other wilderness in the country. Millions of Americans have paddled and fished, swum, found solace among its pristine lakes and forests. It supports a multi-billion-dollar outdoor economy, thousands of jobs, and a way of life that's been passed down
All right, sorry about that, folks. Looks like we just froze with our House floor feed. We believe, because just based on the poster board that was behind the speaker just now, the person who was making that announcement, this is likely having to do with House Joint Resolution 140. This is a nullification of Public Land Order 7917, which withdrew approximately 225,000 acres of National Forest System lands in Cook Lake and St. Louis counties, Minnesota, from mineral and geothermal leasing for 20 years. There was an order to protect and preserve the Rainy River watershed, the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness, the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness Mining Protection Area, and the 1854 ceded territory of the Lake Superior Chippewa. And this is supposed to be protection from potential adverse effects of mineral and geothermal exploration and development. We got our feedback. Let's listen in.
Tool and process backed by peer-reviewed science and extensive public engagement. The Congressional Review Act resolution on the floor today would overturn those protections, once again putting our beloved boundary waters at risk of toxic pollution from a foreign-owned mine. And if that weren't enough to convince my colleagues that this resolution is a terrible idea, I'll briefly touch on the abuse of the Congressional Review Act itself that this resolution represents. The Congressional Review Act, or CRA, has been used to overturn rules finalized
All right, folks, and while we work on this feed, we are going to take a quick break here on Live Impact. In about 2 minutes, we'll return. We are just now logging in one of our local rescue groups, the one I was mentioning that's talking about trying to get these dogs who are chained up outside or outside dogs some assistance as we are bracing for winter weather impacts. And we know that sometimes some owners will not bring their pets in, even if it gets dangerously cold. So bear with us. We'll be back in 2 minutes with more of that on the other side. All right, folks, thank you so much for sticking with us here on Live Impact News. Vanessa Rufus here. We want to talk about more of the winter weather impacts we are seeing in our area as we are looking ahead to this weekend, knowing that we're likely going to be dealing with some sort of wintry mix and potentially really just a lot of ice, which is nasty, gross, dangerous. And we know for pets who are being kept outdoors, very dangerous. We know even just a short period of time exposed to freezing elements can really cause issues including hypothermia, frostbite, and other medical conditions. Of course, on that note, we are seeing animal care and various other agencies advising people to bring in their pets so they don't have to deal with this this risk. We know that in some cases, unfortunately, folks will not do that, and that's what we bring in here. A local rescue group, Two Girls and Lots of Dogs. And we've got Claire Norris with Two Girls, Lots of Dogs joining us right now. We saw that y'all had posted online about this winter supply drive that you're hoping to do for these chain dogs that might be outside. And I just wanted to get, your take on what you feel like the situation could be for some of these pets that are being kept outside this weekend if their owners aren't going to bring them in.
Totally. So what we do at Two Girls, Lots of Dogs, every year we call it Dry January. And I'm sure you've heard of that when it comes to restaurants and going out and that sort of thing. But what we do is provide shelter and straw for the outside dogs that are unable to come inside, or if the owner just doesn't want to bring them inside, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think, once I started getting involved with animal care volunteering and with animal rescue myself as a volunteer, I feel like I was enlightened to the fact that, as pet owners, a pet owner who keeps my dogs inside and, in some cases they're sleeping in the bed with me, or they're very cuddly indoors with me. You don't think that there are so many dogs that are being kept outside, but this is a way of life for some folks. And we also know that depending on which jurisdiction you live in or what municipality you live in, there could be varying rules about what is considered to be an acceptable structure for an animal to live in. And I think that's something
exactly
that,
right.
that blew my mind.
Yeah, it's weird because some areas are like, there is a tether law and they do such a good job of keeping that on lock. They don't let dogs be outside on a chain if it's a certain temperature or wind or anything like that. And then some areas, it's just like, I don't think they've ever heard that word ever. So it's like, it really varies. So what we're really going to focus on is kind of the outskirts of Charlotte. And at this time, what you can do if you're inside Charlotte is you can also call and do a welfare check. And we know our animal control and care is fantastic, and they will go and check on the dog and make sure and talk to the owner and educate. But more so in some of the areas that are about an hour outside of Charlotte, more of the country, it's not as doable, I should say.
Yeah, so it sounds like y'all have ideas of, where these dogs might be already. Maybe there's certain properties that you've already been keeping an eye on, maybe even building relationships with the pet owner. And I see now like a list of this drive, how folks can help. We actually prepared a graphic to kind of show some of the things that folks can donate. Walk us through what you're looking for and how these items are set to help with your efforts.
Yeah, so with that, just a PSA, we don't accept blankets right now because blankets will get wet from the snow and then they freeze. And then the dog tries to go in their doghouse and they have like this block of ice. So no blankets at this time, but we accept wood chips, hay, straw. That keeps the doghouse insulated. Doghouses in general, you would not believe how many people think a crate. I'm talking like you can put your fingers in it with holes on the top of it, like an indoor crate, works as an outdoor shelter. And sometimes they might throw a piece of wood on the top of it, but that doesn't, if it's sideways raining, that doesn't do anything. So we like to update dog houses when we get a chance. And then food. That's the number one kind of complaint when we are connecting with these owners is, things are more expensive, but their animals are still in need. It's like at the end of the week, they just don't have the money for the dog food. So of course they throw the leftover stuff in the refrigerator, but that's just not enough for 2 meals a day for an animal. So mostly straw, wood chips, anything that can be put in a doghouse to stay insulated, but no blankets and food and treats. And we do take open bags because I know some of like mine and your dogs, Vanessa, they're spoiled rotten. So they're like, oh, I'm just not going to eat this bag. I don't like this food. So any food, open bags of treats, anything like that, we will accept.
Yeah, I'm thinking too, maybe there are some pet owners out there and, sadly, maybe their pet had passed and they do have an open bag of dog food that they didn't get through. I know because I've received such bags of dog food from, friends of mine who said, I can't use this. Can you give this to the shelter? And not every, situation can you accept an open bag of dog food. But I know in a case like this, you're really trying to just make sure that these animals that are out in the cold are getting the sustenance that they need. I did want to ask you too, since it sounds like you have a lot of experience being out there talking with these owners, seeing the conditions that these dogs are living in. What do you think is, the most surprising type of, scenario that you have seen personally that you think folks need to know just what it's like out there for some of these pets?
Yeah, that's a great question because a lot of times we will post something and we'll get an influx of direct messages and it's like, these people suck, these are the worst. And that's not always the case. And that was something it took me a while to come around to. I've seen dogs be chained up and kiddos be allergic. Well, if the family's struggling to feed the dogs, they don't have money for Claritin every month. I mean, just things like that. You got to think everything costs money. So it's really easy to sit back and judge. But I will say kids in the home with allergies, dogs they never wanted, like dogs that ran up on their property, dogs that were in a worse situation and the people were trying to help, but maybe some aggression, they don't know how to do it. Not everyone has the resources to get with the trainer, so I just think it's really easy to drive by and be like, oh, they're the worst, take those dogs. But sometimes it's not as black and white, and I think working in the gray is what Two Girls Lots of Dogs we do best, because what we push the most is like talk to the owner. Everyone's like, I don't feel safe. Okay, well, I'm 5'2", so like I don't always feel safe, but most of the time if you knock on a door and you say, hey, I got this bag of dog food, Amazon delivered 2 to my house, can your baby eat this? They're not gonna get angry, so we just try to tell people to just be kind. You never know what situation someone is in, and there has been times when we've used that and then the owners are like, I'm sick, I have a health condition and I was falling over the dog and I love him or her, but I can't do it anymore. And then we step in as a rescue and maybe go a different route. But yeah, so the craziest situation I've seen though is just dogs walking onto properties and the people are like, well, we didn't want them to get hit by a car. So it's like, okay, well that's yeah, you're right. So just don't be so quick to judge, I think is our best advice and craziest scenario.
Now, we understand that, y'all have also been involved with advocacy, and, I did bring up the whole element of laws and ordinances and, for example, what's legal regarding tethering and what's legal regarding, shelter for a pet. And what do you think folks need to know about that front? And, as it comes to maybe educating themselves, and also if maybe they don't agree with whatever policies they have in place in their city or wherever they live, how do they change that?
That's a great question as well, because a lot of people are like, well, who do I call? Where do I go? So for every, like you said, county, state, it's different. So that would be something you definitely just need to Google and figure out who is involved, who's looking over that. Do you have an animal control? A lot of times it's just calling your normal dispatch in your area and asking, and then staying on social media and seeing when there are like town hall meetings or anything like that. That is something me and Phoebe go to often, is just like listening and hearing those people out. But I will say it's more so a little bit out of Charlotte, and a lot of in those more rural areas, people look at animals as livestock, and that's something I'm really focusing on changing, because livestock usually isn't chained. They have a field to, get the nutrients they need, pigs, cows, that sort of thing. But when you chain a dog to a fence post or a tree, I think it's different than livestock. Now, I don't believe that we should keep cows and donkeys in our home and let them sleep with us like our dogs do, Vanessa. But I do think there needs to be a hard line on like domesticated animals, and that's something that we have to work. You have to work within your area and your local law enforcement and leaders. And the best way to do that is by calling dispatch and seeing when the next meetings are and who do you call about welfare and neglect cases. Is there an animal control in your area?
Yeah. Claire Norris, thank you so much. We appreciate you taking the time to join us here on Live Impact. We'll remind folks this list of winter storm dog supply requests is actually on our website right now, but a quick peek once again. The other thing that we didn't mention, donations via Venmo at Two Girls Lots of Dogs is one way. And we also are hearing from other rescue groups in our area foster needs in case they do need to go and, rescue a dog amid the winter conditions. You can find all of that information on our website, WCNC.com. More on this topic, of course, to come. Claire, thank you again. We're going to take a quick break. Back in 2 minutes with impacts to the roadways. We're talking South Carolina roads. All right, folks, we continue to keep you updated on the winter weather impacts coming this weekend. Of course, as we mentioned, our weather impact team is still finessing the forecast as we get closer and closer to the actual weather event. But they're telling us, at least as of today, it is looking more and more likely that we're dealing with primarily an ice event, which we know is not our friend when it comes to power outages, nor is it our friend when it comes to traveling on the roadways. So on that note, we did want to bring in Kelly Moore with South Carolina DOT to talk about how DOT is preparing to meet the need this weekend. Kelly, I can imagine you're probably already have been talking about with your crews all the different roadways you need to hit and how you're going to respond. What are you planning to do leading up to this weekend?
That's exactly right. So the South Carolina Department of Transportation has got crews and equipment staged throughout the state of South Carolina ready to respond. We also have contract crews on standby to come in and reinforce those operations if we need to. We've got crews that are already out pre-treating roadways, especially heavily traveled roadways and bridges that we know could see some of those winter weather impacts this weekend.
Now, I know the big messaging that we've heard from various agencies that do deal with roadways or even first responder agencies is, if we do end up with this big ice event, to not head out on the roadways, not go out if you don't have to. I'm just kind of curious, as folks are preparing to stay at home for potentially a period of time, how quickly are your crews able to get out there and do any additional treatments or response if they do have to do that?
So our crews work before, during, and after the winter weather event. We'll start responding immediately to both treat and plow roads as needed to get them back open quickly. If we see accumulation start to build up on the roads, we do start with those interstates and primary routes, those heavily traveled routes, to ensure that first responders, critical workers can get to where they need to go. We understand that there are folks that need to travel no matter the condition. We're here and we're working for you and for all of South Carolina as we work to safely restore roadways after we see a winter weather event pass through our area.
Now, I mean, I guess as you kind of mentioned the fact that, yeah, there are some folks who will need to head out. I myself will be part of winter storm coverage this weekend, so I will have to be out to try to come here to work so we can keep people informed. Where do you recommend folks travel if they absolutely have to travel, if it is essential and they just cannot remain at home?
Sure, we appreciate what you do and the other frontline folks who are out there making sure that South Carolinians stay safe. If you do have to travel and there's freezing temperatures or even precipitation coming down, we encourage you to slow down, give some space between you and the other cars on the roadway, and just stay alert as you travel. Travel with caution.
Now, is there any sort of hotline that you might be opening, or is there a certain platform folks can be visiting in order to either report particularly dangerous conditions that they might be seeing and or get updates on the very latest, roadways where maybe you all are seeing this is an area to not be, or any sort of updates from you road-wise?
Yes, so we encourage folks to download the SC511 app. You can also visit that website, SC511. That gives you real-time travel conditions, including camera views of those interstate and primary routes, so you can see in real time what the conditions look like before you head out. We do have a call center here at SCDOT and a website, and we'll be here to respond throughout the event.
Now, I mean, I know that you're probably dealing with, your own perhaps meteorology team or partnering. I'm not quite sure exactly how your agency might work, but maybe you're even partnering with, emergency management or even meteorologists in various markets to kind of see exactly what the forecast is looking like. Are you hearing anything from within your agency about how serious this could be? Because we are starting to get a sense that the urgency is a little bit higher than maybe some of the more recent weather impacts that we've seen on the winter front lately.
You're exactly right. We work very closely with the National Weather Service. We also encourage folks to stay tuned to their local broadcasts like yours to make sure that they're getting the very latest weather updates on the forecast. As we know, forecasts can change and evolve. They can get better or worse, but know that we're preparing for the worst and hoping for the best here at SCDOT.
Anything else you'd like to leave us with before we wrap things up here?
The only thing I always like to remind folks is if you're out traveling on the roadways and you see our crews out working, please give them room to work, slow down. We want everyone to go home safe at the end of the day. Our priority here at DOT is to make sure that people traveling in and around South Carolina get where they need to go safely, and we're here and working for you.
Yeah, I understand, as a former traffic reporter in a different state, move over law was a big thing in Florida when I was a traffic reporter there. Definitely reported on it in North and South Carolina. Any particulars about that move over law you want to share, since you did mention giving your emergency crews or your workers some space?
Sure. With conditions on the roadway, being potentially dangerous over the weekend, please slow down, give those responders extra room to work. If you can move safely, please do so. We know that conditions are potentially going to be changing on our roadways. So understanding that, but asking everyone to just slow down and stay cautious as they travel.
All right. Kelly Moore with South Carolina DOT, we thank you for your time in informing our public here and our viewers. And of course, thank you to your workers as well, who are going to be out doing some really hard work potentially this weekend. So we're really grateful.
Thank you very much.
All right. And folks, we'll take another break here on Live Impact. Back on the other side with the latest on winter weather impacts here in the Carolinas and some of the other big headlines we're watching around the nation and around the globe. Great, welcome back, folks. Following a couple feeds. Right now, we're going to stay regionally here and talk about a mass shooting hearing that is happening. There's a teen that's charged with that mass shooting. You might remember back from October of 2022 in the Raleigh area. Austin Thompson is having a hearing today. We'll listen in. Just a quick caveat, the feed's been a little dicey, so if it starts to freeze up, we might have to pivot to another feed we're watching. So bear with us, but let's listen in here as we've got these court proceedings.
Has 57 sharp force injuries to his brother, most of which in the neck area on the left-hand side of his throat and neck. The doctor would say that it was at least 49 stab wounds and 9 incised wounds, which would be wider than they are deep or in a slashing manner. These injuries caused severe damage to James, to include injuries to his carotid and jugular, his vocal cords, and even damaged the vertebrae in his neck. They were deep enough. Eventually, James would succumb to those injuries. According to the note left by the defendant, it took about 10 minutes after he was shot before he stopped breathing. James would eventually be discovered once all of this was in progress of the other shootings that would later occur. His mother arrived home and entered into her residence looking for her children, trying to check on their safety. When she entered into the bathroom in her bedroom is where she was the one that discovered her 16-year-old son, but could not locate her brother, his brother. Law enforcement officers were there. They began to investigate and would later search that residence, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But from about 4:20 or I guess 4:30 or so in the afternoon until the defendant is seen again, which would be at approximately 5:08 in the afternoon, the defendant, it would appear based on the evidence, went through his residence and began to collect the items that he would use to carry out this rampage on this neighborhood. He went through, selected various firearms that were in the home, as he and his family were avid hunters, laid them out on the beds within the residence, almost buffet style, to see what his inventory would be. There were about 5 or so firearms that were still located in the residence when law enforcement officers would search the residence later. There were hundreds of rounds of ammunition in boxes that were also laid out beside each of the weapons in varying calibers, between shotgun, 9mm, and .22, varying types of shotgun ammunition between slugs and buckshot. There were also camouflage gear that was laid out or found in the defendant's room, along with the ammunition that had been repackaged into travel bags, Ziploc type containers, that evidence would indicate the defendant's home, that they were not normally kept in that condition. They were kept in boxes throughout the residence. The defendant had been captured while at school wearing dark colored clothing when he got off of the school bus on video surveillance. When he later emerged, he was no longer wearing that, but had on full camouflage gear, a large backpack, and was carrying at least a long gun, which was visible and would later be determined to be a shotgun. The backpack would later be discovered and recovered by law enforcement when the defendant was taken into custody. And inside of that backpack, which weighed about 22 pounds at the time, the defendant had brought with him multiple bottles of water, prepackaged food, a change of clothes, over $700 in cash, again, dozens and dozens of rounds of ammunition that had now been changed in packaging from the boxes into Ziploc bags and would later be discovered to have been carried in his pockets, and various survival gear to include fire starters, a first aid kit, face paint, for hunting type behavior, multiple knives, fishing hooks, toilet paper, and a change of clothes. The note that I indicated was left behind by the defendant in the residence. And I'm not going to read that to the court. I'll provide it to the court as an exhibit and would ask that for the time being that it remain under seal until the sentencing hearing. But I will tell the court that during that note, he acknowledges his behavior and his intention to some degree, and confesses that he in fact intentionally killed his brother and the reason why he did so. And so if I may approach, I'll give the court that, and I will mark it first page as States A and the second as States B. So as I indicated, according to that note, all of this begins around 4:20 in the afternoon. The defendant is not seen again until about 5:08 p.m. And when he is seen, he's captured on neighbors' Ring doorbell cameras exiting his residence, and he's now wearing that camouflage clothing that he would later be discovered in. He also has that backpack on his person and has a long gun, which is visible. But just prior to that, two ladies, Nicole Connors, who was 52 years old at the time, and Lynn Garner, who were friends, were neighbors of the defendant, lived a couple doors down. Ms. Connors did. She and Ms. Garner had gone out to celebrate a birthday earlier in that afternoon, and they'd gone to Red Lobster. They were on their way back to the residence and were going to go walk their dogs. The Ring doorbell camera and neighbors would say that they saw them out attempting to start their walk with their dog. They come walking past the defendant's home back towards the Connors residence with their dogs in tow. Seconds after they pass in front of the camera, you can see the defendant exit his residence, walk in a crouched way towards and a brisker pace towards those towards those two ladies, raise the firearm, and you can see that long gun fire at least one round. What would also be picked up on a different Ring doorbell camera is the audio of that event, where you hear that he fires what sounds like 5 gunshots from a long gun that would be consistent with the shotgun that he's later found to be in possession of, then transition into a handgun, what it sounds like, which would be a 9mm that he was later found to be in possession of. Ms. Connors would make it back onto her front porch, where she would later be found by her husband Tracy, who's present in the courtroom. She's deceased at that time. She is found on her side on the front porch of her home, unable to make it into her residence. She had suffered at least 2 gunshot wounds that appeared to be from a shotgun. And those were to the left chest, breast, and arm area, causing severe damage to her person and ultimately taking her life. She also had what the medical examiner would determine, in his opinion, was more consistent with a handgun or single round that had been fired from the back of her, in the back of her head, and she was found dead there. Beside her dead body would be her dog, which had also been shot one time with what appeared to be the handgun. Miss Garner was more fortunate in that she lived, but she was also discovered on that walkway leading up from the driveway to the porch or the front deck area of that residence. She was transported by emergency personnel when she was discovered, and as I said, was fortunate enough to live. However, she suffered serious injuries to her person, including from a shotgun, which caused fractures to her face, severe injuries to her abdomen and chest, and she's had to spend months in the hospital in an effort to recover from her injuries. She was unable to provide a statement to law enforcement officers for a long time because of the medical treatment that she was being provided, and she still suffers the effects of this today. As I indicated, she was taken and eventually did give a statement to law enforcement officers when she was finally able to do so. She was able to describe the young man in camo that was the one that did this to her, said that she saw him standing over her, and she cried out and asked why he was doing this to them. Forensics would eventually come to that scene and collect evidence that would be consistent with what the video evidence and the eyewitnesses would testify about, and that would indicate that at that scene there were 5 spent shotgun casings that had been fired from the shotgun. Those were kind of along the roadway and into the grassy area, which would be consistent with the path of travel that witnesses would say they saw, along with the path of travel that you can see in the video. On the porch of that residence in the front by the dog and by Ms. Connors, there would be 2 spent 9mm cartridge casings that would be located on the porch there. As I indicated, there were witnesses who would say they saw this individual in camo that appeared to be the one that was in this area when the shooting happened, and they began at this point in time to call 911, and these are when the first 911 calls are coming into the processing center. As a result of that action at that location, there was also a neighbor's home, which is at 2201 Castle Pines Drive, which is a residence of Nicole Cooper. She was present in her home at the point in time and would later contact law enforcement and saying, look, I knew you had a lot going on at the time, but I have discovered that my home was struck with the projectiles that would be consistent with the shotgun. As you can see, the spray pattern on the outside of her home that entered in through the outside of her residence and landed inside of the bathroom, breaking her toilet bowl and causing some other damages within that occupied residence. And that would have been as forensically correlated with the event that occurred at the 5355 Shahaley Way, which is the Connors residence outside. A video from a neighboring street, which is at Black Wolf Run, would pick up moments later. As I said, that was at about 5:08, so 2 minutes later or so, at around 5:10 p.m., a timestamp would capture this defendant crossing down Black Wolf Run, headed towards the cul-de-sac of Osprey Cove Drive. That would be a cul-de-sac that would later be the place that Gabriel Torres' body would be discovered. That video shows the defendant walking at kind of at a jog at a brisk pace, and then getting into the street and slowing down to walk towards that location. Witnesses would say that they saw him approaching a car at that location, which would later be determined to be officer with the Raleigh Police Department, Gabriel Torres' automobile. It would be determined that he was attempting to leave his residence to go to work that day. He was at the time not yet in uniform. He was sitting in his car on the phone with his wife Jasmine, who he lived with at that residence, and their young daughter, who was under the age of 5 at the time. While they were together, the mother and daughter are on the phone with Gabriel. They are moments behind the defendant as he's walking that direction. The same camera or a different camera picks up her car making the turn about the same time that you can hear the gunshots going off. She says that she's talking to him. He had backed out of their driveway as he had always done, and as neighbors would say he does, he being Officer Torres, to wait on her to come home so that he could kiss his daughter and tell his wife goodbye before he goes to work. They heard the gunshots, and he made a statement to them that he might need to go and look and to see what was going on. He was not able to do that. As a neighbor would say, they looked out the window after they had put their 2-year-old, I believe, child down on the couch and looked out the window when they happened to see a young man walking down the sidewalk in camouflage. with a gun. He looked out and said, "What is this person doing?" At which point he sees the defendant walk in front of Officer Torres's car, fire around it directly through the front of the windshield, keep moving to the passenger side, firing 2 more times into that occupied car at Officer Torres, who was seated there and did not have a weapon on him at the time. Officer Torres was struck 3 times, or was struck at least 3 times by that shotgun at relatively close range. The witness says that when they saw this, they had opened the door and yelled at the defendant to have him stop, at which point the defendant stopped, turned at him, and pointed the gun at him as he was standing in his doorway. He slammed the door and ran back in, grabbed his child, ran upstairs, and he would express and would have told the court about the fear that he was experiencing at that point in time when he realized that he had not locked his door and had to go back downstairs unarmed, fearing that the defendant was going to come kick in his door or shoot through the door and harm him. He was subsequently able to go outside when he realized that the person had walked to the left of, facing the car, to the left of the car, down the embankment towards the greenway. He went to go check on his friend, Officer Torres. When he got out there, Jasmine, Officer Torres's wife, was already there trying to save her husband, but was unable to do so. He subsequently passed away as a result of the gunshot wounds to his chest, neck, and shoulder area, which were done at such close range that when they found him, the wadding from the shotgun was still embedded in Officer Torres's arm. As I indicated, the defendant was seen walking down towards the greenway at that Osprey Cove location. At that point in time,